here's the thing, like thinking about suicide and all this shit, and like, 4 of my friends committed suicide. Like, it's like, I feel like after the pandemic, this was like a common thing where men are having like an issue just wanting to be alive. And it's like, what kept me here was like, I have to find reasons to be here.
All right, guys, welcome back to the show. I'm Mario.
And I'm Peter.
And we're Guys That Listen. On today's episode, we got dance and Filipino legend, JustJet. Woo!
I'm also a guy that listens.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Tell us a little about yourself, everything you got going on.
This story goes way back, but I think in terms to just explain my notoriety, I was on a show called America's Best Dance Crew, and I'd won the show with my crew, Poriotics, and oh my gosh, it was like almost a decade ago. That was
Jesus
like
Christ.
2011. Back then, people were saying like, oh, like Jet, you made it. I'm like, no, that was like the start of everything.
Yeah.
So from there, I was working with all the top artists. Like I was working with, just to name the list of people that I've worked with, it was Bruno Mars, Justin Bieber, Taylor Swift, Taboo from the Black Eyed Peas. I've worked with Taylor a bunch of times, Bieber, Poriotics. We opened up for his concert in the Philippines, and we also did his music video. I forgot which one. And there's also actually a video of me getting pants by him. Like
Justin Bieber?
Yeah, he like shorts me. And like that video went viral and I was so embarrassed. But like I feel like looking back at that shit, I'm like, damn, I could have capitalized on that shit.
You could have capitalized on that.
I was just right off America's Best Dance Crew. I was like 23 years old. I didn't know what to do. But like looking back, I'm like, oh, I totally could have done something with that shit.
There's no TikTok then or anything.
Nah, there was nothing like that. I think Vine was just becoming popular, but I didn't know how to use it yet.
Yeah.
Aside from that, the video, the Lazy song. Bruno Mars Lazy song. Like, we were the guys in the monkey masks, and we choreographed that video to squeeze my story just kind of like shorter and just to make sense of things. So yes, I did all these things, but then my mind opened up to just to the bigger world outside of dance. And like I've totally just kind of like left it, and I can digress on that further, which I will.
Yeah.
But I think one of the first things that comes to my head when thinking about the video that we did with Bruno, and the thing is that video is probably Bruno's biggest video to date. I think at all of them. I think it has like 1 billion views plus.
Oh, shit.
If you look at it, it's like 1 billion views plus. We only got paid $5K for that.
Whoa.
So here's the thing. Hold on. This is another thing that I've like, at my age now, like like back then I wasn't that smart. I didn't know how. I didn't know how to negotiate. Like our management team back then wasn't the greatest. And like, back then I was just like, oh, okay, great. Like, yeah, 5K, whatever. Yeah, sure. Like that was like our rate back then. But like in hindsight, I'm just like, motherfucker. If like our management was smarter, they could have like done a whole like, okay, like, just like maybe a cent per view or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
Like $1 per view, like for like an X amount of time. Like, that's how I would have negotiated. But like just seeing, like being part of that world, the dance world, and even opening up to a bigger world of entertainment. And then me just kind of like, okay, like, kind of stepping out of it, which I'm like half in, half out now. And it's just like, I think back then, and what a lot of people is in entertainment, or like people that are wanting to be in entertainment or wanting to be an artist or a singer or whatever, YouTuber or whatever, it's like they want to realize that dream, but they don't realize the importance of the business aspect afterwards.
Oh yeah.
Because most reality is, like once you realize that dream, okay, what's next? You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, like if you want to have a family, you gotta feed your kids and all this shit. Or it's like, you want to have like a continuous cash flow of income. That's where I'm at right now. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, and if I was smarter back then, I would have handled it a lot better. But yeah, that's just like, that's my experience in a nutshell. And this is like the tip of the iceberg, and everything else is just like, there's way more than this.
I really like that you say, like, you have to like kind of be a businessman to an extent,
Oh yeah.
One of my favorite authors talks about how like you being a creative is this whole other experience, and you are in a box, be creative, do whatever it is you do. And afterwards you have to cage the creative and like jail him and be the person who like knows how to make money for him. Because so often with creatives, when you're really creative, you get lost in the sauce, Yes. And it's like you're in that moment of creativity and you don't know how to separate that and actually like put yourself out there in a good business standpoint, like negotiate for yourself, like good rates, good pay, all that.
I feel like that's what people are doing nowadays.
You think also because back then, like that kind of like content being created with all these like superstars, as far as like dancers or musicians or co-producers and stuff like that. It was kind of fresh, and that's probably why the management team didn't have a lot of experience. Probably not too many people had that much experience, you know. Right. And obviously now you're saying like the younger cats kind of know what to do, probably because of mistakes like that.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. And I'm curious, like, what was the book that you talked about?
His name is Brandon Sanderson.
Brandon Sanderson. What's the name of the book?
He's called the Stormlight Archives. He has the best. No, oh, okay. It's called what is it called when you raise money at that place?
Or Kickstarter.
Thank you. It's Kickstarter. So
Kickstarter.
He has the most profitable Kickstarter of all time. He put during the pandemic, he wrote 4 different books. He won't tell you the title. They're secret projects. He's like, hey guys, I'm putting these up. Buy them. Everything. He made 27 million.
Pretty good.
Just off of his writing, because he's already marketed himself to such an extent where he's built that fan base from his creativity. He has his own management team. He has his own podcast too. Everything he's done, he has his own universe for it. Manages it himself with his team and markets it to, his public and everything. So when he did his own Kickstarter, 27 million. That's crazy.
That's just a Kickstarter. That's not even like the final sales number.
I can respect that.
Then you got to think about it in terms of like a creative, right? There's so many ways to monetize, but how do you capitalize on it? As an author, right, you have like something that you're selling, an item, a book, right? Whether it's digital where you can't touch it or something tangible as a hardback, right? But as a dancer, like, what do you do? And I know you're not just in the realm of dancing. You're obviously a multifaceted creator, right? But let's just talk about strictly dancing right now.
Okay.
We were talking about views as far as like, taking a percentage of this person's. But the negotiation for that, I'm sure it would require a high level of negotiations to do that, right? Because let's say you're working with someone like JB now, and you ask them like, hey, I just want a penny out of like every 1,000 views. Good luck, you know what I mean? Because they know, their management knows. Like, and not only that, but I feel like luckily, you guys had a lot of notoriety in your name. Yep. But for the smaller cats who probably just get on there and they're like, $5,000, cha-ching.
Yeah.
But really, in hindsight, right, the whole picture, you're not actually making that much. It's actually not that much because it can't sustain you. And it just kind of goes back to, well, I know that you know about investing.
Yeah.
But that's like a financial literacy thing that's also not taught to a lot of creatives, right? And that's a whole nother thing.
And I think I was forced into that during the pandemic.
I remember we talked about stuff like that.
We were talking about this. So this kind of speeds up the story. Like, it's like I'm someone who understands investing, business game, but also is a creative, and but I had to learn it through a lot of pains. And so I think the door opened for me was the pandemic. I knew that the entertainment world was the last thing that was going to come back. Like, specifically performing arts. Yeah. Like dance was the last thing that was gonna come back. And my prediction was correct. Like it wasn't until like maybe last year that like, okay, now we're having like live concerts, Coachella's back. You know what I'm saying? So then, and I was like, okay, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna go jump in the stock market. I'm gonna learn how to do this shit. And I think I did pretty well. I got hurt a lot, but at the end of the day, it's just like I did pretty well. And I think for someone that was that came from an entertainment world, from the entertainment world. Like I made money in the entertainment world, but the stock game is just way different, bro. Because the thing is, it's like when you're working for your time, you're doing active work. You're actually like doing something. Like even when I was doing like movies and TV, movies, commercials and stuff, I'd be there for the day. Yeah. And then, depending on the contract, I'll either get a buyout, meaning like a one-time fee, like, okay, we'll pay you $3,000 for this. Okay, cool. Yeah. Or it's like, if you do a SAG contract, it's like, okay, well, we're paying you the daily rate, but for every time it airs, we're going to pay you X amount. And I think the most I got was like maybe like $30,000 off like something. Yeah. Now that's cool. But in the stock market, and during the pandemic, I'll say it's a totally different game.
Yeah, it's changed a lot.
We're in a bear market.
Yeah, I was a genius during the pandemic.
Everybody, like who wasn't a genius? But the thing is, it's like at the end of the day, it's just more like it really just was about like, were you right or not? Yeah. And I was hype on AMC during that time.
Yeah, I know you were.
I was like, I saw AMC. Because I learned how to read the charts, and I was like in all the chat group. I was just reading everybody. I'm like, none of these people are talking about it. I'm looking at the charts. There's no way this shit's gonna fall. I got in at $3. I put almost everything I had into it.
Oh wow, so I know that.
Almost everything I had. And then I had some options in stocks and some other ones as well. But most of my shit was in AMC. And then the day that AMC blew up, it hit 72.
Yeah, it was June 2nd.
Yeah.
My birthday.
I remember. And I remember I was in Hawaii at the time, and I think I came up like 200K in one day.
Sheesh.
Now, here's the thing. That was a good day. And but here's the crutch of it. Like it was dope being, like that was the fastest money I've made in one day, all right?
Yeah.
I've talked about this in a couple podcasts as well, but the other effect of it is what I saw. Now, to me, the stock market, you're straight up, that's to me, it's the red pill. You take the red pill and you see the world for what it is, you exit the matrix. And because I saw everything. I was watching the news, I saw how things affected the news, and not only that, but it was just also just being around, one thing I noticed about the stock market, it's full of people who can predict human behavior. And that's why they're there, because to win in the stock market, you got to be the ones who win are the ones who get in early, and then get out when it's hype.
Or you could just inverse Kramer the entire time.
Okay. That's a stock joke. I think a few people will understand that. Yeah.
To you stock heads out there.
Kramer is he's basically the biggest pump and dumper.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically because he's the most famous dude on. What is it?
I forgot what
Wall Street Bets.
No. He has a show.
He has a TV show.
Segment.
He has the most famous. He's the most famous stock person.
Yeah, and he's always super passionate. You don't know about this AMC. It's really getting dumped right now, and then everyone will just buy.
That's
why they call it inverse Kramer, because he'll just say the stock market looks good today, and everyone's like, nah, it's gonna drop.
It's either get in there early. If people are already talking about it, oh shit, AMC or Dogecoin or whatever, and it's too late.
Yeah,
that's not the time to get in. You should be selling by that point.
Yeah.
Now to be real, I took a little bit off the top at 70, but then I really took everything off around maybe 60, 65.
Okay,
so the next day that shit dropped and it went right back up.
Yeah.
That shit was crazy. But me talking about exiting the matrix, taking the red pill.
Yeah.
So it was the first time I was exposed to conservatives, moderates, and conspiracy theorists. Because these were the people I was just talking to every day, and everybody's cool as fuck. It's what are we doing? We're at home, and I'm talking to these people from 5 a.m. West Coast time to after market close 6 p.m. I can't remember, 4 p.m. something like that.
Yeah.
And it's just I come from a place where the world I came from, full of creatives and liberals. So I saw a duality of different people, and so I came from the world where people were hating on Trump supporters and conservatives and all that, and then but then I'm in this world, I'm in these rooms talking to these people who are conspiracy theorists. Flat earthers, what I'm saying? Just the people that everybody on the left dislikes. And it's just man, these people are actually cool as fuck.
Yeah.
And it's just seeing this was just, it put me in a weird place. And it's I felt I couldn't talk to my family. When I talked to friends in the dance world, they didn't understand me.
Yeah.
I got actually canceled in the dance community for an instance, and I can digress about it.
I know you talked about it a little bit, but I didn't exactly understand why. Because at that point, I think it was a couple days after you had really talked about the main core situation.
Did you fall in love with a Republican girl? You can't be together.
It's Donald Trump's daughter. It's Ivanka.
It's Romeo and Juliet.
Oh my gosh. I don't know, nothing like that. No. But it was just more I think, let me just tell you about what happened. So, on my Instagram, I basically, if you look at my Instagram now, it's not what it used to be, but I was straight up dancer influencer. My page was oh, this guy's a straight up dancer. You know what I'm saying? I didn't want that anymore, and I'll explain that later. But what had happened was, so what I used to do was I used to just put my camera down just like that, and I just dance around the world wherever I was at, and just fuck around with people and shit. Now, there's one video I did in 2019 when I was judging an event in Nigeria, and I put the camera down, dancing, and these two African kids just came to hang out with me, and I was teaching them, and that video did pretty well. It was dope, and I had everybody loved that video. Now this is where the pandemic, when the pandemic, it kind of just showed me a different world of dance, and I'm not saying the world of dance, but I'm the way I was seeing dance, how the dance world was in that time period. I was just I'll just say it was very negative. So because I posted this video in 2019, I had reposted this video again because during that time it was when Reels were becoming a thing, and everybody was just reposting their old videos in Reel format.
Yeah.
You know, it just boosted Reels at the time, and even today, it just boosts your videos more.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets more eyes on it. But this time I reposted the video and I talked about my time in Nigeria, but I was also talking about what was happening in Nigeria at that time. So during the pandemic, there was a time where the Nigerian government had hired a paramilitary to just kind of handle business. So they gave these random people like guns, just handle business. Like as a security, like extra security. But these people were took advantage of that and they started shooting and stealing from regular people. And then I was like, yo, like this is crazy. I reposted the video and I talked about this. I wrote a caption about like this is what's going on in Nigeria. And then immediately after I posted that, like I had like comments saying like, what the fuck is this? Like, yo, this is an example of white saviorism. And I was like, wait, what's going on? And I had this organization in the dance community that had reached out to me, and they were like, they wanted to talk to me about the video, and I was like, okay, yeah, sure, yeah, okay, yeah, what do you want to know? I get in this live IG video, and I'm on this live with this girl.
Oh, dude, I was on that for like a split second.
Oh, okay,
yeah, for a split second, but she was pretty much coming at you.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
So so here's the thing. You watch the video, like now it's somewhere floating around. People, I feel like I've talked about this in like 2 podcasts already, and like I have a feeling this might like erupt it again. But it's somewhere floating in the video. Like you look at the video now, like you can't see the comments rolling, but in the video when I was in the live, you see all these comments rolling, and I have all these people talking mad shit at me, and I'm like, okay, like, I'm talking to this girl, I forgot her name, and it's just like, okay, what are we doing here? Because I'm seeing all this negativity, and then she's just like, we want to talk about that video. That's an act of white saviorism. And I was like, what is going on? Like, I was just like, let me talk about my experience in there first, and I'm going to talk about my latter experience. So, she was basically saying things like, you shouldn't be doing this. If you're going to talk about something like this, you should have a black voice talking about this. And I was just like, I was like, whoa, dude, like, in my head, I'm just showing what's going on in Nigeria at the time. And, so basically like, it's just, and this is what's weird. 2019, people are giving it mad props. Yeah. Even the same people that were canceling me in 2020 during the pandemic, they were giving me props in 2019. But because of the time that was in, people are like hating on me now. Like, it was just crazy. Now, here's the thing. I didn't back down. I was just like, I didn't think it was wrong. But people kept coming at me because it was just like, or she kept coming at me because she was like, I wasn't admitting to it. I didn't want to admit to it because I was like, this is ridiculous. Why? Like, first of all, I'm not even white. Yeah. Yes, I'm a lighter complexion Filipino, but it's just like, what the heck is going on here? So, and I basically she kept asking me questions like, do you believe Black Lives Matter? Do you she went political. And I'm just like, at that point, I just knew that wherever I went, if I said yes or if I said no, it's just going to be like, it's just going to keep going. I knew I needed to get out. So I just kept asking her questions. And eventually she was like, you know what? You're avoiding the questions. Like, we're just going to cut this. I'm like, okay. Even after the end of the video, I was like, do you still want to be friends though? Like,
yeah.
And then, but she was like, whatever. But then at the end of the video, I saw all these people rolling on the comments and like, these people, some of them were dancers that I hired, that I traveled with, that I worked with for years, some of them I battled with, and it's just like, I was just like, what is going on here?
That's fucking crazy, by the way.
I almost like suppressed it. Now, I'll say this, there's a lot of things happened. I was actually suicidal last year. That had a part of it because I felt very alone.
Damn.
And because it was just like my immediate family saw the video, and they were just like, why are you talking to them like that? Like, and I'm just like, but it's because I didn't back down. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And there was something telling me inside, I was just like, you're not wrong for whatever you did. And that's why I didn't back down. And like now, like 3 years later, I knew why. I knew why it was a good thing to not back down. And I'll explain this later. Okay. So now after this video, like, dude, I went into a slightly dark place, and I feel like that's what they wanted. Like, they want anybody, that organization, and I feel like for a lot during that time, there's a lot of people who wanted everybody else to feel their pain. You know, like the oppressed at that time, right? And it was just like it's almost like they didn't want to see anybody happy or celebrating. I understand that. But it's just like, I feel like people didn't realize the effects of that. Does that make sense? Like, you know, like, it's, I think it's the whole idea of like, you know, hurt people.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, it's just like, what I've learned from that experience is like, yo, like, if you allow that pain that you're expressing to be put on another person, that's gonna have a whole effect on another person. Yep. And it had one on me.
Yeah, I know you're going through all that last year.
Yeah, I can digress.
I reached out. Fuck.
This goes big. This goes bigger. I mean, it goes deeper than this. So to digress a little bit more of why I'm glad I didn't back down. Like after the pandemic, start to kind of just slowly pace out, if that's the best word to say, and then like when all the heavy political emotions start to like die down a little bit, I noticed that some of the dancers and the people that I knew who were like unfollowed me, like whatever, like they like once they felt like they were in the clear, they all started like trying to talk to me again, follow me again. They're like, some people are sending me messages, and I'm just like, motherfucker, fuck you. Like, I'm like, it's like, because I knew it was bullshit, and it's like, I think what it was during that time, it's like people just didn't want to be on the side that was losing. Yeah, if that makes sense. And I 100%. Feel like if you weren't as politically aggressive, like you're based, that's an act of violence. But in reality, like, isn't that an act of violence? Being the one that's like being politically aggressive, and so it's and it's crazy because it's like, and here's the thing, I've completely left the dance community. Because of that, I'm out. Because of how I saw how wishy-washy people were turning their backs on me, people that I'd known for such a long time, and then just kind of like coming back. I was like, you know what? I'm out. Yeah. Now, it's just, here's the thing. I've been part of the dance community for almost like 15 to 20 years. Damn. I've invested money into it. Like even before like the whole periodics thing and all that, like I was in the street community for such a long time. Yeah. The people who are canceling me, I don't even know who they were. I have no idea. They had no leadership in the dance community. It's like they were trying to force their way into it. But it's just like, from my understanding at that time, was that it didn't matter how much time you put into this community or like, or how much effort you put into it. It was more about like your identity. Like, are you this skin color or not? You're not. Therefore, you don't count. The idea of the outcome of there's a word here that I've basically this. It's just like it didn't matter. The time that you put into this thing just didn't matter. Yeah. Like say you built a car and from the ground up, you built I don't know, like a Civic Type R. I don't know. I'm gonna talk about the fucking like 2000s. Yeah. Like, look at my car, it's great. And everybody's like giving you props. And like what it is that because you're not a certain skin color, that shit didn't matter. Yeah. That's what it was like. That was my experience. Damn. And it's so crazy to hear that because also like, bro, I'm fucking Filipino. Like, yo, like out of all the Asians, we're probably the most fucking confused because we're like Hispanic and we're fucking Asian at the same time. And it's just like, I'm light skinned, but all my relatives are dark skinned. I just happen to come out this fucking way. So it's just like, what the fuck? You know what I'm saying? So to me, it's just so crazy to see how, and this is why I've taken myself out of like the whole liberal ideology and like the even just the create. I'm still creative, but I see myself like right in the center because I can see both sides. Yeah. But it's just like it's hard for me to be like a part of it anymore because it hurt me so much.
No, I see that. I feel like you ended up on the wrong end of the political and cultural and the sensitivity of the time, the backlash.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, let's say this happened this year or 2019, you wouldn't experience the same kind of backlash because everything was so politically charged at the time. Yeah,
extremely.
You just ended up on the wrong end of it, because I don't think there's anything wrong. Well, I mean, I haven't seen the video. I don't know exactly, but from what you're telling me, and I've seen a lot of people get canceled during that year,
If you hold that thought, I'll just say definitely like there are some things I definitely could have said different and I could probably charge even more. But I think at that time I was also kind of annoyed. And I think I said some other things, but
I think it's your intuition, right? Your intuition is telling you like, look, I'm not wrong about this because you are dancing and vibing in this video. Yes. You're trying to bring awareness to something that's happening. You're not trying to do this for like, hey, I'm doing this for props or for this. It's like, hey, you're trying to bring attention to someone. Yeah, I was dancing in this video, but I ultimately am trying to do a good thing. And it must feel so weird to like be attacked from like, I was just trying to bring attention to
That's
like
exactly it.
something, you know, like.
But I think during that time too, the way I saw things was that, all right, dude, like people know you because you're basically a dance influencer. But now they're putting in all this political stuff where it's like, okay, well, I understand that you're an influencer, so therefore your words hold weight. Yep. But dude, you're not the person that they should be talking about this with. You know what I mean? It's like, yes, talk about this conversation one-on-one, but it's not like you're here to like debate that shit. You know what I mean? Like that's why it was like, why did we come on about this dance thing? And now it became like a political debate. Like that's you know what I mean? It just doesn't make sense. And that's what happened to a lot of people because there was a lot of division, right? And what people did was they just wanted to pick sides. Like I saw people get canceled for like the smallest things. I'm not talking about cancel as in like they were somebody big on the internet. Like these were just regular ass people. I see people get canceled for having like I support police like stickers on their car, you know what I mean? Like during that time, it was fucking huge. Like friends would be like, I'm not friends with that person anymore, you know, or you vote for Trump, I'm not friends with that person. And it was fucking insane to me because I've always seen myself as a person in the middle, like very similar to you, you know? And, you know, like I don't have anything against like either side. You know, there's some things that I pick and choose, you know, I kind of cherry pick it. Same thing with like, I have nothing against religion, but you know, I don't agree with a lot of it, but there are things that I do agree with, you know, and I'm not saying that, let's say if that's what your belief is, you can believe it. That's fine. You know, you just don't impose it on me. Yep. You know, I'm not here fighting you on you, and you know, I'm not like trying to disturb the peace or anything like that. But it seems like that's what people are trying to do is because during that time, everyone wanted a voice, and that's where it was. You know, and you were a target because you had a big platform.
Yes. Yeah.
So I would totally understand if it was like you were part of a Republican dance crew and there was a Democrat dance crew and y'all battling it out. And then I get it. You know, then maybe I get it.
Hey, the Blues and Reds might be confused for a different kind of party. Maybe not political party.
We got some like in Santa Ana here, actually.
So I wanted to ask about something you mentioned earlier, how the dance community kind of abandoning you and, you know, like canceling you, throwing you under the bus, led you to this dark place. And you felt suicidal.
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit about that?
I think what it was that was one factor. That was a big factor, but it was like a bunch of other factors. You know, first of all, like I said, you know, me being in the stock market, being around a totally different group of people that I'm usually around, mostly liberals, which my family's mostly liberal, and the dance community, which is mostly liberal, and it's just like I see a different side, and it's like and then I'm the type of person who questions, and I felt like during that time. During the pandemic, I wasn't allowed to question anything. I wasn't like I was hearing all these things in the stock market from people in the market, conspiracy theorists, like you know, questioning vaccine efficacy, what's going on with the January 6th insurrection or whatever, and then like all this other shit about Trump and like all that, and then I'm just like I'm hearing a different side. And here's the thing: in the stock market, as you know, that is as true as you can get because it's all numbers. There's nothing true. The market don't give a fuck. The market doesn't give a fuck about your feelings. It's all numbers and graphs, ratios and percentages. And that's what I was watching. And everybody I was hanging out with were watching this. So I knew the truth of what was going on. And it was the truth because three years later, they were right about everything. Questioning vaccine efficacy, shit about Biden. Now we're having the situation with like the insurrection actually not being real because the footage is coming out. Like how that QAnon what's his name, the shaman guy. Like he was actually like escorted into the was it the Capitol building versus actually like invading. Like there's all this other shit coming out, and it's just and I think primarily is because you know. The Democrats were trying to get Trump out of office. You know, that's another thing too. They're trying to get someone else in, which is Biden. 3 years later, a lot of these predictions, they were all right. And it's just so crazy to me to just feel so, I felt like I was suppressed. I couldn't talk about these things. And it was like, not even that. It was what led me to that depression, actually what even led me to being suicidal was, at the time I had left one of my businesses and I had also broken up with my girlfriend at the time in the same day.
Oh, wow.
And also the state of the market wasn't the greatest, so that didn't help either. So it was all that. And I, you know, fortunately I was strong enough to handle it because I didn't do it. You know what I'm saying? I was really gonna do it. But then, you know, I felt like there were things that I felt like I still needed to see things through. And, you know, it's crazy because, you know, talking about this, it's like during that time, like that year, like after I got out of that, I had 4 friends who committed suicide after that. Yeah, and one of them being Twitch, the one who was Ellen. He was a friend of mine. I've known him since like 2000, like it was a long time, like 2009. And I was a fan of him first, and then we worked together on Step Up. On one of the Step Up 4, that's one we worked on together, and I was spending almost every day with him. And it's just like I lost touch during the pandemic because I just wasn't, I wasn't part of the dance community anymore. And then, he took himself out. And I think I feel guilty about it because I had posted a note on my Instagram because I disappeared after during that time period that I disappeared, I like removed all my dance videos. Like Peter's and talking about the people who were my followers. They, my page was full on dance influencer shit and all this, and I was like, you know what, I'm out. I don't want to do this shit. I don't want to be seen as this anymore because what had happened to me and like what I was going through. And like I posted a note talking about my experience being suicidal and like what I went through, and like literally a week later, Twitch kills himself. Now here's the thing, like when I say I feel responsible is because I know he read it because the fool follows me and everybody saw it. And I got so many responses from it. And it's just, I have a feeling that it's just like whatever he was going through, it's like, it almost like, part of me feels like it triggered him, it's like, I don't know. It's crazy. Like, it's like, I feel indirectly responsible for it. But I think as you guys heard too, I think another thing that bothers me also is like, the guy, owner of Jackfruit, he had passed.
Yeah.
And that was also suicide. Now, now
I didn't know. I was wondering if it was. I was really wondering if it was. I was hoping, like not hoping, like something killed him, but I hope it wasn't suicide.
Yeah. I've read around about it. The thing is, I knew him also, and
he actually came out to one of Henry's like birthdays like a while ago. Nice guy,
Devian, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. The thing. My attachment to Davian is like, it's crazy because like I had no idea that he was running Jackfruit, but I look at pictures and I was like, oh shit, I knew this guy because he used to be part of a entertainment group in San Jose.
Oh really?
Choreotics got hired to perform out there, and I became friends with that group. One of them was the guy who ran the entertainment company was called Endless Entertainment. Cam, he was a friend of mine, and I would party with him in Vegas here and there. And then he actually passed away of cancer like last year, and it's crazy to hear that his because he was actually the one that started Jackfruit, and I remember him telling me that years ago. But I didn't understand the connection, until later on because I look at the old pictures of me, Cam, and Davian of Jackfruit. We're all in pictures together, and I was like, oh fuck, I met Davian, I know him.
Yeah, and
it's just like it's so crazy that everything just kind of just tied together. Here's the thing, like, thinking about suicide and all this shit, and, like, 4 of my friends committed suicide. Like, it's like, I feel like after the pandemic, this was, like, a common thing where men are having, like, an issue just wanting to be alive. And it's like, what kept me here was, like, I have to find reasons to be here. That's it.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, me leaving the dance community, me just doing whatever the fuck I really want to do, it basically, it makes it easier. When you really when you go through that situation of, like, suicide, or going close to that, and then just choosing to stick around, it's like that's when you really try to understand, like, why the fuck am I here?
Yeah.
Why do I want to be here? So, just to shorten this, I felt like you were going to say something. It's just, that's why, like, I had to leave these things. I had to cut the fat and, like, cut out relationships. I had to do these things because it was just like, I felt like it wasn't serving me anymore because, like, I was at the brink of, like, wanting to be here, like not wanting to be here.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna want to be here, I'm only gonna choose to do the things and choose to be around people that want to be around me, and then that's just gonna make my life simpler.
I have a question before you ask Peter.
Yeah.
So I see these people who do commit suicide, and I've experienced it indirectly. I have a homegirl. She was engaged for like 12 years, and her guy committed suicide. It's crazy,
Yeah.
What is the feeling like? Because I personally don't find myself in that direction. Like I don't find myself depressed. I don't find myself like typically sad. I know. So I hope this isn't triggering anything, but I would want to know what is the feeling? What is the experience like? Can you walk me through or walk our audience through like what it really feels like? Because I have no contextual experience. How do people say depression? I imagine sad, I imagine lonely, I imagine, away from a community or like you're just feeling by yourself. but I don't know. Like I can't put words into it. Like is there? Can you walk me through the experience a little bit of kind of what it might feel like?
I think, and just to be completely honest, it's the feeling, for one word, and I'll digress on it, it's just heavy. Like the feeling is just very, it just feels like the weight, like obviously we're living in a world of gravity, but it just feels like there's a weight on you that's pulling you down. And that feeling, like that's constituted from like the mind. Like there's times where it's just like, do I need to be here? Like there was like when I was in that state, and I don't know if I'm gonna relapse that. I don't know. Well, I don't know what's gonna happen. Yeah. Like I'm in a good place right now, but it's like the thoughts that went through my head when I was feeling that heaviness was, do I need to be here? Like, should I just maybe I just give myself another year and just see what happens, you know? And then, but the thing about suicide is, and from what I experience is, and this is why it's like I don't subscribe to it as well, because that act is an act created out of an emotion. Whether you shoot yourself or you hang yourself or whatever, because I've had friends in my circles who've done that. Or you jump off a bridge. That's an emotion. Like it's almost like your logic goes into a state of like, okay, it's just like, it's just there. It's like you're typing on a keyboard, delivering all this information, and then it's just like, then it goes into an emotion of like, I'm just gonna do this. And then you commit that act. But the thing is why people I feel like people don't understand it is because it's like you don't see it. You can't visually see it. But, you know, here's the thing. It's like this thing is happening a lot more. I'm noticing it even past the pandemic. And an example of Davian, he was like a leader.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was a leader for a lot of people, and specifically the Asian community. And it's just like, how you ask that question, how could someone who's like that go to that state? I noticed this. Here's something that I understood about myself. Like I noticed that on his last post, he wrote something about like, you know, if you're going through something, you know, please, you know, it was basically, I can't speak word for word on it. You followers, and maybe after this week, you can take a look at it. It's at the Instagram page. It was the last post he made about, and he talked about basically just trying to stay positive. That I know that was almost like a call for help, because it's like when you're in that dark space, that's what you're going to do. Because I know that I went there. Like I was very just like when I was in that dark space, I was trying to like be like more positive for other people.
Yeah.
And I remember it was weird, like backing up, I was like, I noticed that around the time when I thought about doing it, like I was joking hard. I was like, I felt like I was like having so much fun, but the reality was like that was like a shell that I was creating for myself. And now I'm just like, I don't give a fuck anymore. Because I don't want to fucking please anybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, fuck that. Because I know why I want to be here, and I don't want to fucking please anybody that's going to tell me otherwise. If that makes sense?
Yeah.
So I feel like I become a different person from that time period. Like, I look at the period of me back then, it's just like, I feel like I'm a different person.
Yeah.
And I feel like part of me tells me that, and this is something I've actually, I've had a life coach, we talked about this. It's like, he mentioned that, he feels like maybe a part of you just died that wasn't meant to be here, and the one that chose to be here is the you now, you know. But now I look at my homies who commit suicide, and it's just like, you know, it's like they didn't want to see that out, and that kind of fucks me up.
Which is crazy. Like something like Twitch, who had a whole ass family, success, like everything, and I don't kids, and like I do try and understand. I'm like, I'm trying, but I don't get it sometimes.
You know, I've talked to you about this, and I understand. Like, it's weird that now, and it's gonna sound bad, right? Like now,
no, just be honest.
Yeah, of course. I'm gonna say it no matter what. I don't give a fuck. But
Cancel.
Yeah, but like, especially for like males, like not understanding a state of like depression is a little bit of a privilege now. You know what I mean? I feel like...
I'm curious. Please digress. Yeah, I'm curious now.
Yeah, so like, you know, when you were saying a lot of things that you said, like, because I went through like a depression too.
Really?
Yeah, around the same time. And I didn't understand it because I'm like usually the positive ass motherfucker who everyone's like, dude, you're so happy all the fucking time. There's no way. And but then I started seeing like weird traits that are out of my characteristics. Like, and a very similar question. I didn't get as far as to like contemplate suicide, but one of the questions I did ask myself that you just actually said was like, what am I doing here? Like, like why am I here? You know? And that's why when I saw things like, you when you said it was really heavy, I'm a person I'm like a go-getter. I'm an action taker.
Yeah.
And during that time, I remember finding myself like laying in my bed from when I wake up for like 4 or 5 hours, just in the darkness, not even looking at my phone, and like not feeling like doing anything, which was strangely out of character for me. And there's a bunch of other instances too, and I knew what was contributing to it, and when I would finally get out of that rut, I would research it heavily, like depression. And one of the things I did too, funny enough, is I posted about it. I would say like, hey, I was kind of going through like a slight depression. You guys should, be positive. These are the steps that I took to kind of like mitigate it a little bit. But if you guys have any issues, please feel free to reach out to me.
Yeah.
Which is funny because like it that actually happens pretty frequently.
Really?
Because I've met a lot of people I've been around suicide for a long time. Youngest.
Wait, so suicidal friends or just suicide?
Suicidal friends.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Suicidal friends, suicide for myself. I had that one thought a long time ago, like maybe 15 years ago. I can't even recollect like why I thought that. Because when I was younger, I didn't really understand my feelings, Now I understand it to like a deeper level, and I also kind of understand the science behind it. Because, you always hear about it. People always say suicide is an illness. And to a certain extent, that is true, right? There's a lot of variables that go into it. There's a lot of nuance to this illness, right? Because again, one is it's not tangible. It's not something that you can see, right? And typically, people who are suicidal, you can't see it even on their face.
Right.
You can't see it in their actions. They're usually the happiest people or happiest looking.
Yeah.
And that's why it's difficult. And for me, like hearing all these descriptions, I think it's becoming, the information out there is becoming more abundant that there is kind of like a way to classify people who are going through a depression. Maybe not suicidal yet, but for me now, whenever I see that, I tend to reach out to my friends who fit those characteristics. And funny enough, a lot of them you cannot tell.
Yeah.
Because they show the opposite of depression, or at least what you would paint as a picture of depression.
That's it.
Yeah. So, I would hear friends where I'm like, hey, are you right? I just want to let you know I love you and care about you. And to everyone else, they'd be like, why would you ask them that? Like, they seem great.
Yeah.
And then weirdly enough, they would tell me like, hey, I was actually in a very dark place. Like, I've contemplated suicide.
It's the people that are covering things up.
Yeah. And, and they're like, I felt alone even though I was in a group of people. I felt like I brought no value. I had no purpose. And, yeah, man, like it's a very common feeling amongst men because, for one, we're not supposed to talk about our feelings, know? It's kind of crazy, And I would like to say that I'm very open and transparent about things, but there are even things that I have a hard time opening up about, talking about. And, growing up in a family where my dad was like the breadwinner, but he also like would never complain or cry about things. He would just hold everything in. Nothing ever hurt him, I thought that's how I had to be.
Yeah.
And weirdly enough, as a creative or, in your case, like a dancer, like having a ability to like express yourself through art really, before when I ever felt like that really helped me, finding a medium to express myself. But I think also when you said that you couldn't express yourself through words, right? Because you took away the dancing because they kind of left.
Yeah.
And now you can express yourself verbally. It kind of puts you deeper through that.
That helps me understand. You're helping me understand myself when you say that.
Okay.
What the fuck?
Then we're doing a great job.
Yeah.
He's been
Whoa,
listening.
That's why.
Yeah.
Oh, I get it now. That's basically it.
Yeah, and it's weird, because so this is just a science thing that I learned about depression is that it is in your brain, right? And that's how you feel through your emotions.
Right.
And it's in this part of your brain where basically, like, no matter what your trials and tribulations are, where it reaches that part of your brain, you feel the same pain.
Say that one more time.
The trials and tribulations, no matter what it is for the person, right, or another person, once it reaches that part of your brain, you feel the same pain. So it's the same thing as, like, let's say, for instance, it's very easy to write people off for their hardships because sometimes you're like, oh, well, I had it worse, right? So a good example is I remember one of the first instances that I've realized that I can relate to someone and I kind of put their feelings down was when I was in high school, and the smartest girl in my class got like A minus, and she bursted down, and she broke down in tears, right? And
Asian shit.
yeah, that is definitely some Asian shit, but that also comes with its own, pressures, and we'll get into that later if anything. But I was like, really, I gotta fucking see. I'm not crying, But the thing that you understand is everyone interprets pain like differently and experiences differently, and it's so easy for us to be like, why don't you just walk it off? You know what I mean? Like, why don't you just not talk about it and, like, suck it up, But realistically, just because let's say you get a ticket for speeding or whatever, so I get a ticket for speeding, we can interpret things that same like frustrations and pain completely different.
Right.
But it'll feel truthfully just as painful. You know what I mean? Like if you're going through depression and I'm going through depression, no matter what reason, it doesn't even have to be deep. If we're both really going through it, chemically in our brain, it's similar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what people don't understand, is because they always like, their life is not that bad. And you hear that a lot about people who actually have like very fortunate lives, right? You hear about Anthony Bourdain, where it's like, dude, he had the best job ever. Why would he commit suicide? But no matter what it is that made him depressed, he felt that pain. No matter how privileged his life might have been, he felt that pain, and it was true to the point where he took his life. And that's why you can't really write anyone off of why they feel so deeply about something that you feel like is so insignificant to you, because it's not insignificant to them. And that's why it's hard to relate sometimes, because we have different experiences, so we interpret pain differently. We're different human beings. But that's why in the very end, the main thing is to have like empathy towards anyone who's going through it.
In general.
Yeah, because I'm not gonna lie, this is just me divulging how shitty of a human being I was when I was a kid. I remember one of my friends, his parents were getting divorced in middle school.
Yeah.
And he was just talking about how much he hated his parents for that and how depressed he was. And he constantly talked about suicide. And me being a very, unempathetic kid, after years of him mentioning it, I would just literally say, like, why don't you fucking do it? You know what I mean? And that's such an asshole thing to say, you know what I mean? And obviously, kids are fucking terrible. I mean, I was a terrible kid, but like, looking back at it, like, thank God he never did. You know what I mean? Because now, like, it's weird. It's better to, like, tread lightly and help than to kind of accuse them of falsely wanting to commit suicide, falsely accusing them of not really being depressed. It's weird because being empathetic is everything now. Whether or not what they're going through is true, whether or not it's a cry for help or a cry for attention, I feel like I'd rather not contribute to that hurt if it is factual, And, just like I said before, I didn't know that you were going through some stuff like that. And it's not even the fact that, like, we're really that close or anything like that. It's the fact that I understand what you're going through to a certain degree. Maybe I didn't reach that peak where it's like I didn't see the other end. But to hear what you're going through and kind of really seeing myself in your shoes, because some of the things you're describing, I totally felt, I understood, because I've been there. And that's why I don't blame someone like Mario where he's like, I don't understand it, because you're that part of your brain has never connected to where that area of hurt is. And that's fucking fine. You know what I mean? But the main thing is it's definitely a lot easier when you've been through it yourself, right? To relate. But, with Mario, the only thing we could do is, like, explain to everyone else that, hey, this thing is factual, this thing is true. Whether you see it or not, whether we seem happier than we really are, like, just care for one another. And that's the very least as friends, and even less than friends, just human beings, because you never know what someone's going through, even though it seems like their life is so great.
It's really, and I think your perspective of just checking in with people that it seems like they're doing all right, those are the people you should be asking.
Yeah.
Like, that's something that I'm realizing even more. It's just like, I should be talking to my friends and asking them questions, like the ones who seem like they're happy as hell.
Yeah, so good.
Because those are the ones that are just usually those are the case. They're usually the case.
Are you doing all right, Peter?
I am doing a lot better. Thank you for asking.
Is there anything you want to, get off your chest or talk about?
I mean, I
feel you've made a lot of steps forward since this, but I'm sure there's still stuff there.
Man, I honestly think one of the biggest steps that I took was to understand what at that time in my life felt as like weakness. And that was me feeling like I didn't achieve as much as I wanted to. I'm not where I want to be in my life, comparing myself to others, and really acknowledging the fact that I actually did feel like that. Like when people would ask me like, oh, how do you feel? Do you feel like you're, stacking up to everyone who's achieving everything they seem like they set out to? I'd be like, fuck no, I don't give a fuck. Put a hard exterior on. But really, if I really looked at my actions, and funny enough, I'll relate this to the stock market in a little bit.
Can't wait.
It is that like that's not true. I was envious of others, like making it further than me, being that I felt like we were in the same boat at one point. And how I'm gonna relate to the stock market in this is that, when I was playing the stock market, I would write out how I felt or how I thought I felt or what kind of person I was. And then I would really look at my actions and see if it reflected that. And that's how the stock market taught me a lot about myself, because I realized, like, one of the things I said as a person overall, right, is that I'm very patient. But the stock market, my actions taught me that I was very impatient. And I think what the stock market did was put a magnifying glass on my actions.
Yeah.
Right. And it's weird because like only until you reflect it to such a minor level, such as like a small movement, a small uptick, small downtick, do you realize like how impactful these things are to your own actions, right? And what dictates what you do and how you move in your life. But that's hard because not a lot of people get that. You know what I mean? Like I would like to say that I'm not fucking greedy, but you know how many times I've held until it's reached past my stop loss or my whatever the fuck, and I still let it ride, let it fucking ride, right? Let it keep on going.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it really shows you because I'm like, oh fuck, maybe I am a greedy little shit. Like really, you know what I mean? And then
It tells you.
Yeah, and the opposite of that is like when you're losing, right? And you like to think that, yeah, I could cut my losses. I could walk away from this. And then it goes past your stop loss and you're losing way more. And you're like, okay, I'm not that defensive. And then it goes down even further and you're like, fuck. And your account goes completely red. And you're like, okay, if I'm going to be completely honest with myself, because this journal is just for me, that wasn't true. Yeah. Those things I thought of myself wasn't true. It's and just true. Like how I started journaling and really reflecting on what I was saying about how I felt and what I actually did, it showed me certain things that I grew up saying was more of a habit than it really was a reflection of how I truly felt at the time.
I think sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
I feel like what this is that our perceptions of ourselves, it's almost like we have to test it. It's almost like we don't. It's like I feel like that's what it is in life. We're constantly testing our self perceptions of ourselves, but we don't know until we put ourselves through it. And I think like that was, bro. What you're saying is the same for me. Like I learned so much about myself from being in the stock market. Yeah, it taught me to be very unemotional about money, straight up. And I think it's the same for you, for everybody.
Yeah, it's weird how we really got to the stock market, but
depression, stock market, dance.
I mean, even like weirdly enough, like there was a lot of people who committed suicide during those ups and downs of the stock market.
A lot of people.
It was a very emotionally charged time.
Yeah,
a lot of people thought they were going to strike it rich, and when you didn't, it didn't pan out for some people. Yeah, and it just goes back to really, I can't speak on the female experience because I am not a female, but as far as like males go, I think we just need to learn how to really put our actions and how we feel under a microscope and really analyze that. And that's hard because sometimes it is really about looking at yourself and being like, damn, like I really am a little bit weaker than what I thought I am. And that's okay because that's a flaw that I could adjust versus like not owning up to it and allowing yourself to dig yourself a deeper hole that you might not be able to crawl out of. Like that's tough because some people don't get out.
That's growth. That's self-awareness. I think that's universal for a man and woman, where it's like you have to face what issues and faults you have, what kind of shit you've carried with you from your trauma. Yeah. And you got to see yourself and it's like, how do I go from here? How do I grow? How do I make actual changes to become a person that I actually want to be? I think we all have an image of ourselves and who we want to be, that person that maybe we thought we wanted to be as a kid. And when the reality doesn't face up to it, you have to make, it's like you realize what kind of person you are, and like you have to make those changes, or you stay stuck in the same place for, the rest of your life.
But that's all. Also, some people's reality is that they think that they're perfect. And when you're perfect, there's nothing to change, right? So being stuck in the same place as perfect is okay to them.
I think that's hard. Because I think some people like embody the idea of like, oh, I'm amazing, I'm perfect, I'm the best.
Yeah.
But still trying to work on themselves.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. But I just think also we live in a day and age where you try to present your best self on social media, right? Especially if you're trying to be in a public eye. And that's tough because some people don't want to feel that feeling of embarrassment, and this is something I do for myself. Those of you guys who are my friends on social media know that like I have hella embarrassing moments, especially after a night drinking, which is very common. And one of the things that I've come to do for myself that kind of helped me get past that feeling of embarrassment and not showing the world that this is how I am, this is truthfully how I am right now, as flawed as I am as a human being, is I just let it ride. I might have posted something completely dumb where I'm belligerent, right? And for me, when I see that the next day and I feel that feeling of shame a little bit, instead of deleting it and hoping no one sees it, I let it ride and let it burn in my mind that like I did do that. I am that person at that point in my life, but that allows me to change. That allows me to be like, okay, maybe I don't want to do this anymore. Instead of, okay, no one saw it, let me delete it and continue acting the way I did as if nothing ever happened. And I feel like that's difficult for a lot of people because, even into the most like minor things like, oh, that's a bad picture of me. Can you delete it? Imagine if it's like, this is such a flawed version of me that I acted so dumb and shameful and I regret being this person, but I want to improve. But in a way where it's like, if no one holds me accountable for it, then I don't need to.
Okay, so yeah, you talked about something. I just remember the last word that you talked about was the idea of perfection, the perception of perfection, especially in social media. And like you kind of sprung something like a thought in me of maybe that's why like we're so fucking depressed in this fucking age.
Oh yeah.
It's like, we have people like me and Peter who have tendencies to go to that end, and yourself who's just like, I don't understand it. And it's just like, I just feel like maybe that's what's keeping me here. Like, I'm here to try to understand the human condition, and it's like, I feel like me as an observer seeing this world move where it's like people's perception of you is how you are on social media. It's like whether you're just followers, all that shit. And then also like, how you look, the pictures you post, the videos you post, all that stuff. I think the reality of all that shit is fucking bullshit because it's curated. That perception is completely curated. I got fucking tired of that shit. Of just being like a dancer. Because I think what it also is that, like, as you said, I am a multifaceted person. I do different shit other than dance. That's just one part of me. And I think what's getting people more depressed these days, and definitely, is because it's like, oh, I'm not perfect enough. Because I look at the person I follow and like, it seems like their life is so fucking perfect. And it's just like, but, and that's why I started opening up about like real fucking shit. Like, this is real fucking life, bro. Like, this is the reality of it. Because I think like, and I stated this in my post about what I was going through when I went suicidal. It really, for people that go through suicide, it's like they just don't want to face reality anymore. Yeah. And it's just like, and we talk about the guys like Bourdain. Excuse me. Talk about guys like Twitch. I just made out with the mic. And it's like, they fucking have everything. These are people, and I think that's what it is. And even Jason David Frank, the Green Ranger, these were people who had like everything. And they just decided to self-delete because they couldn't find a purpose anymore in living. Maybe that's just what it is. It's like I think especially for men, we just don't, when you feel like you don't have a purpose anymore, like you feel like you're like, what's the point? When you have, it's almost like it's crazy because it's like we try to achieve that level, but it's like once you're there, it's like I have everything. All right, what's next? And I think that's what happens. And yeah, it's just like here's the thing. Like I think about my childhood friend, basically my cousin, her brother was actually one of the guys that had committed suicide. One of my friends, and you know what? She seems so happy, and I'm like, why? It's because she's not on social media. She's like has zero social media. She's probably connected to social media through her husband, but she doesn't have Facebook. She don't got Instagram. She don't got nothing.
Yeah.
I have talked to her on a phone. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I have to text her on the phone. I message her through Instagram, and she just seems so fucking happy, except for the situation with her brother. But
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? It's just like, so it's like there are people like that in this world, and she's like our age. She's like in her 30s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's just she seems so happy. So there are people who are in this world who are like that. You know, one thing I've understood about like being an observer of like what's of this world. It's like you look back at the old stories like the Bible. I feel like nowadays like people are trying to cancel the fucking Bible.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy. Like the Bible, and you look at the old stories of just like the old fables of Greek mythology, all that shit. Bro, we haven't fucking changed. Human beings have not changed. It's the world changed. We didn't change. So it's just like we're having like a hard time catching up. I feel like with what's going on with the way technology is pushing us and all this shit.
Yeah.
And that's what's making us depressed. Isn't that fucking crazy?
I really like what you said, and I think you're really on the money about the social media making us like depressed. Can you isolate the feeling of social media, like of having your Instagram, whatever you have in you right now? Can you isolate that and tell me how it feels to you?
I think the emotion I have of it is,
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, I understand it. Like like it's. Here's the thing. I don't know if you guys are getting sponsorship from yet. Eventually,
Yeah.
But it's
we get food sponsors.
perfect.
Free food scoop.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So like dude, like part of my life during when I was in dancer influencer age, in that time period. Sorry, not dancer influencer age. I feel like I'm talking about like Stone Age and shit. No, it's not that long ago. It was only fucking 3 years ago. That was like where my income came from. But now I'm in a place where I don't need my income to come from that. You know, like it's like it's not like do or die for me. So that's why it's like whatever. It's to me right now. It's a place where it's just I'm going to talk about things that matter to me, and I think this is also going to segue into where I'm at now. So like obviously like I have a business and with different things, but in terms creatively, and this goes back to Peter when you were talking about like you basically just open it up to me like, oh, that's why I felt depressed because I couldn't talk about shit because like I was gonna get canceled. I know what it feels like. I didn't want to dance because that was the world that like canceled me.
Yeah.
So I basically shifted over to music. And so music is like the one place where it's just like I feel like I have free reign to do whatever the hell I want. And that's where I'm at creatively. And that's what's actually like keeping me alive.
What's the name of your newest single?
So that's coming out. But it's just like, bro, like it's weird because I've been producing music for for years. Like after I'd left Poriotics in 2015, I put myself into a music production school, and I was like, okay, I'm going to be a big DJ, like everybody else. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But then I think with everything that happened to me, I was like, you know what? I have these skills, but fuck it, I'm just going to learn to be a rapper. So I was just like, the first track, my first single that came out, The Answer, was just like me, like, all right. This is it. This is just like me just going through it. And it was basically the answer to my questions because I felt like I couldn't question everything. So that's the name of the title. And it's like, I know, the track it's something that like if it plays at an EDM festival or at a club, people will get into it, but it's not something you would just like listen to, you know what I'm saying? But it was just like, that was the first track that came out that I was just like, okay, this is my identity. My identity as an artist. Here's the thing. It's like, whether I become successful at it or not, I would want to be, and I'm going to learn the ropes of how to do it. It's not going to hurt or break my bank. It's not. I'm not trying to suck dick to like use that shit to live. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like most artists, you know what I'm saying? Like I feel like I hear about these stories of all these artists who lose these famous artists who lose out on so much money because of these contract deals with labels and all that shit. And I'm just like, I don't know if I want that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I might subscribe to that later, but we'll see. But like that's just to cap it off. That's one of the reasons that's keeping me here. Just
nice
filling that creative that creative space. That makes sense.
I really like that creativity is a part of what's keeping you here. When we had Faye Reds on here, he talked about how having creativity, especially having the arts as a youth and stuff, keeps you out of gangs, keeps you out of trouble.
Oh, yeah.
Keeps you here and like developing as like an actual contributing human being of society.
Right.
And I love that, dude.
Yeah.
I wish I was more creative. I want to rap too.
Yeah. So like one of the reasons why this started back up again was, during that time, that was like that depression phase. And when I had talked to people and put it out on the internet that, I was going through it, when people reached out to me and they're like, hey, that actually really helped me out. I ended up having like a bunch of accountability buddies where we check in every week.
Yeah.
How you felt, like what you did, you know what I mean? Like how your life's going, what we could improve on. And then I actually kind of got exhausted because I had so many.
You had a lot of people hyping you up?
Yeah.
Was it all the girls?
It was girls and guys, but anyways. No, they were really depressed, I'm sure. Please. Don't water down their depression, please. But yeah, so then I would respond and, it would be like 2-hour long conversations. And then I was with multiple people and I was like, damn, like I'm glad that I could help them out. But I just feel like there has to be a way where I can help out more people than one at a time.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. So then that's when I was like, oh, I kind of want to start the podcast up again, but really kind of like go back to like the mental side of things, the mental, emotional side of things, and not just be entertaining. That's originally why we did it, and it gave me more purpose. And so this, guys that listen, this creation is reborn with that purpose in mind. And I definitely feel that every single episode when we connect with people, like how we connected with you, like we are putting like that in the spotlight where this is what we really do care about. As much as we bullshit and laugh and make jokes about fucking trying to be ran through and shit like that, like, like there is a deeper purpose. And I think I just want people to kind of take it seriously when I say like mental health is huge, is a real thing. It might not be tangible, but everyone goes through it, whether it's now, your youth, later on in life, because you never know. You know what I mean? Like, but when it's that time for you, hopefully there is a platform that can help you out. And that I'm assuming that's why there's sites like better.com or BetterHelp or whatever that site is. Obviously there's therapy, stuff like that might be not accessible to people who can't afford it. But I think listening to conversations like this and the relatability of it is super important.
Right.
Because that's all I did. All I did was just talked about it, put it out in the open, and people reached out and being able to have that conversation, understanding. And I think this is another thing too. It's not feeling alone. Understanding like, hey, like when people talk to me, like they're like, I can't believe you're going through it too. You seem like such a happy-go-lucky guy. And if you could go through it, that means I could go through it. And it doesn't mean that I'm flawed. Doesn't mean that I'm faulty. Doesn't mean I'm not supposed to be here. It just means I'm going through it just like how you are. And that was really important to me. And that's why, as much as we bullshit around here, I want it to be purposeful.
And I think that can bring us into the subject. We
Yeah.
we talk about mental health.
Yeah.
Mauro, you brought up something. A word that sparked our interest, which was shrooms. Now I'm curious, like, what was your experience with shrooms?
Like the Last of Us type of shrooms? Or?
Please no.
Infected?
So I tried shrooms at a decently young age. Maybe I was 23, 24.
Yeah.
And I always credit my own success and self-awareness to starting mushrooms at a very early age, because I felt that it opened up my mind and it made me more self-aware, and it gave me perspective. And before shrooms, like I had smoked weed, and I would say weed is like an entry to shrooms to an extent. But I just felt like I was living with blinders on, and and it doesn't happen off of just one time. It's something that happens after a few times. You feel a difference. I remember my first experience finishing like the trip and everything, being in my car and being like, holy shit, like we have these metal vehicles that we take for granted. They can take us so fucking quick from point A to point B. You go back like 100 years, nobody had this shit. The ability for the world to communicate from every day was so severely limited before you had cars. And it was just me. And I was like, just in my car thinking, I was like, whoa, like that's weird. I hadn't had this thought before, And that's just an example of like how my ideas just extrapolated to like different concepts and allowing me to like really kind of like see the world around me and like not take things for granted and also see myself and the way I was moving through the world and realize like, man, I'm not moving with purpose and I'm not being the person that I imagine I want to be. Like this is not the person I want to be. Like my habits, the things I do, that's not who I want to be. And it helped me like, there's like stuff you hide in the back of your mind sometimes that are just hiding there or like you don't want to bring up. Sometimes you think about it, but you push them back and being on it, like it just pushed them to the forefront and I had to deal with it. I had to like address like, oh shit, I do have some weaknesses. I have a lot of weaknesses actually. And I'm like, refusing to address them because of this weird perception of myself that I have to be strong or I have to be like, people have to see me a certain way. And it was such a screwed up notion where I'm like, no, dude, if you want to be like a good human or strong, you have to like deal with your shit. You have to like address these problems you have and you have to like try and become better and like really acknowledge it. And I would do shrooms and I would write about it and my experiences after. Like it doesn't happen after one time or two or three. Like you do it and you get that feeling and you write about it, you work on it again. When you're sober, you try it again and again. And eventually like I really like feel like I grew into myself and like who I actually want to be.
Damn, you guys are so lucky. Because whenever I do shrooms, I never get that experience.
To be fair, you're doing shrooms at a party.
No, I'll do shrooms at like a park. I've done shrooms at the beach.
By yourself?
No, with like 2 or 3 other people.
Do it by yourself.
Okay, so
Your friends are degenerates.
what happens to you when you okay, what's your experience?
So just to kind of like give you some context, like I am a very non-visual person, meaning like I don't see things at all. Like
I've never seen
my
anything on shrooms.
imagination,
Really?
Never seen anything on shrooms.
like if you were to tell me to imagine my ex-girlfriends in my mind, I cannot imagine them. You know what I mean? Like if I see you, I'm like, that was my ex. I dated this person. But like in my mind, I can't visualize it. Yeah. But when I take shrooms, it's insanely visual. Like it's fucking crazy.
Sorry. Because
Yeah.
I thought you said that when you're on shrooms, you don't see anything.
No, I normally don't see anything. Normally,
Okay, gotcha,
sober.
gotcha.
Yeah, and then on shrooms, everything's extremely visual, but none of it is like spiritual. None of it is like it doesn't touch me inside my heart or anything like that. Yeah, I just see it and I'm just like, whoa, a yellow submarine, cool. Like what's the floors are melting, cool. You know what I mean? Like his hairs are running away from his forehead. Like what the fuck, But like it doesn't speak to me. That's kind of like what I'm saying. So I hear a lot of people's experiences, and the only thing I can say is it sounds very spiritual. Right. And to me, like I don't get that feeling at all.
Really? So I'm curious. You don't feel you get the visual aspect.
Yeah.
But the mind aspect, like you don't.
I would recommend doing it just by yourself. Maybe even in your room or at the park and have a notebook with you and just direct your thoughts to like yourself.
I mean, I've done shrooms where I was by myself for a little bit.
Okay.
I was around people. I went in a room and I was just by myself.
Do you know what strain you were taking?
I've had a couple. The one that I take the most was it penis envy?
Okay, so you take interesting.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
then maybe that's just how it's the chemistry effect.
Oh yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
then just to put it in more context, like drugs. And this is kind of like the backstory, right? Like I always say this, and
Here's the thing, real quick. Hold that thought.
Yeah.
I think shrooms are medicine, not drugs. But keep going.
Okay, sure. I always tell people my experiences with drugs, and I always say this, and it's usually taken out of context because what I follow up with is not what people usually remember. And I always tell them that, I don't feel it. So you know what I mean? So,
but we see him and he's feeling it.
yeah. And what I always follow up with, which people never put into context, is that I don't feel what you're supposed to feel when you're on this drug, like the reason why you take it, right? So, for instance, let's talk about ecstasy for a second.
Yeah, okay.
Right, like when you take ecstasy, you're supposed to feel this like euphoric feeling where you're happy and everything's just nice and the world is just fucking rainbows and butterflies and shit like that. And for me, when I take it, my eyes become jittery. My fingers cannot stop touching each other. I'm grinding the shit out of my fucking teeth. You know what I mean? Like it's all the bad stuff, right? It's all the side effects. And this happens with a lot of drugs, right? Like even caffeine. You know what I mean? Caffeine's supposed to keep you focused, keep you awake. I'm fucking sleepy. I am fucking jittery to the fucking brim. Like but I'm like there's no other reason to take it other than the good stuff, you know? And that's what I usually don't get out of it. And shrooms is the only thing where like there's not really any negative side effects. I don't look fucking like ridiculous. You You know, what I mean, I don't look like I'm, like out of my mind, but I see things that are like crazy. But the spiritual part, and don't get me wrong, like I don't mind the visuals. Yeah. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad side effect. It's just I don't get the blinders opening up.
So I kind of understand like the different effects of strains, and usually it's that penis. Yeah, penis envy is definitely one of the strongest.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's supposed to actually create more of like a mind setting. But that's the effect on you.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I've been doing shrooms since 2012.
Oh,
and I feel like we're in an age now where like we can just talk about it normally.
Oh,
It's so much more acceptable
right,
now,
right.
dude.
It's like hell yeah. And if it could be, it's actually it's next on the block to be
hope so.
legalized. I think so too. But the issue with and I was just listening to Joe Rogan's podcast just recently about this, and it's just like I think the only thing that's blocking it is that it's going to compete with pharma, like big pharma, because it has the capacity. Because shrooms have the natural capacity to reduce depression and
alcoholism,
anxiety, like everything.
PTSD.
Yeah,
That's why you're saying it's medicine.
That's why I call it medicine. That's why I call shrooms medicine. Because it's healing more so than anything. Like you can party with it.
Yeah.
But like for me, it's like it's something I can't like. When I first started doing shrooms, like I was like, "What is this?" Like I was just like, "Whoa!" Okay. Here's the thing. When you eat shrooms and you take that first dump, and then right when you dump, everything just starts going woo. You know what I'm saying? Like everything starts to melt. I remember I was at Hardfest. That was the first time like I was like, "Whoa!" This is like Hardfest 2012. I can't. Yeah, 2012. Yeah. I remember like. I took a cap this big. I didn't even know what strain it was, but the cap was this big.
Jesus
I
Christ.
ate it, and I was like, okay, I need to take
It's
a
like
shit.
a portobello.
Yeah, it was like, seriously, it was like the size of a portobello. Yeah. I remember taking a dump in one of the porta potties, and once I let it out, like the bathroom, like the porta potty just started to wave a little bit, and I walked out, and it was like a different world. Yeah. It looked way different than when I walked in, and everything was all colorful and orange, and it was just like, bro, like this is crazy. But then like after that, like. As I started doing it more often, that's when my mind started to talk to me.
Oh,
like
wow.
as you talk, it's weird because it's now there's like two different. There's a duality here. Like you talk about
there's
the
always
mind,
a duality here.
but it's visual. But for me, it became more about like the mindscape thing, and it was just like as you said, like Mario, as you said, it's like it was almost like I was observing myself whenever I was on it, and just kind of like okay, and it was telling me like these are the things that you should do if you want this. It's almost like it helped me realize these things. But if I really had to go for things, you have to go for it. So it exposed me to the ideas, but then I had to go through with it. So like aside from Poriotics, from the things I did, and like I was able to do so many different things creatively. So what I'm trying to say is shrooms have helped with my creative direction immensely. And it's like it's weird because like a lot of these things that I did, it almost felt like it was written out in a way where it was just like when I say written out, it's like, I know it sounds a little crazy. Maybe it does. I don't know. It's like these things that I did. I was like, it's almost like I was meant to do these things. Like I think one of the biggest things I did was when I worked with Robert Downey Jr. in a commercial. I had no idea that I was going to be working with him. So there was a time period where I was like, well, yeah, I still do acting shit aside from dance. But it's like, I didn't think that I would be able to achieve these things. It was so fucking random. Like Robert Downey Jr. Like that's like high up. He's the upper class of actors. You know what I'm saying? And just working with him was just so. It just it was almost like a lesson. I was like I learned so much just hanging out with him. We were working for like an hour, and it was just.
Were
so
you on
crazy.
shrooms at the time, or?
But I felt like shrooms helped me get there.
What did you guys do together?
Okay.
Oh, it was just a commercial. Like I was just like I was his tailor, and then he was just.
Oh wait, no, I saw the commercial.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. I was just talking to him for like an hour, and I feel like I learned so much just from being around him. And I think the most distinct thing I learned from Robert was when I first met him, he like looks you in the eye. You know, there's some people you meet, just like, oh, what's up?
Yeah.
But he what he does is he'll do this to you and then shake your hand.
Really?
And I think it's like maybe it's just him like just being in that moment because Robert has been through a lot of shit.
Oh
in his
yeah,
life.
he's drugs and everything.
It's
Like,
a
yeah,
huge
drugs
fight
are
with
like-
like alcoholism, right?
Yeah. And I feel like he's the type of person that just knows how to really live in the moment. And me being someone who was just fucking dancing on the fucking streets for like $20 a fucking night, and then just coming in, hang out / work with Robert Downey Jr. I was like, well, this is fucking crazy. But I feel like my experience with shrooms helped me kind of just open up to the fact that, hey, you could do this. If that makes sense. But at the end of the day, you still have to make that choice to fucking go for it.
Yeah.
That makes sense? Because that day I could have been like, I don't want to do this. That day I auditioned, I could have been like, I don't want to do this. But it's just like knowing the game and just the way time just kind of pans out. And this is why I talk about like maybe it's just written. Okay, excuse me. This is like shroom thoughts.
No,
like everything that we go
like
through, like maybe it was written already.
Sometimes it is.
Maybe it's like when you think about these things, it's like we think about memory. Memory is a causality of things that happen in the present and how we react to it, right? So therefore, it's like when we look at memory, it's like maybe it's just written out already.
It's like those tapes and stuff where you're going through it. You can go from like the beginning to the end.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can think about it the same way, where it's like you're just taking that part and you're just going through the tape.
That's it.
Because they talk about sometimes how like this is just theories and stuff.
Yeah.
And yes, this is stuff that I've looked at when I've been on drugs.
Excuse me, medicine.
No, it was drugs that time.
Yeah.
But it's like they talk about how like the universe and the way it's shaped and everything too, and like let's talk about like multiverse and everything too.
Yeah.
It's already all expanded and it's already all happened. It's already there, but your consciousness is just going through space time at the moment. But these things have already happened.
Yeah.
You're just experiencing it in that present moment, but it's already there.
Yeah, so it's kind of like physics, right? They say like if you look through another planet through a microscope, like you would see it, but all the things that already happened, but you see it like in the past.
Yep.
Of it.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
it takes light time to get all the way over here.
But both is reality.
I love it because like it makes you explore these kind of thoughts where it's like sometimes you feel so closed off and condensed from the world that you don't have these kind of free thoughts. Like you don't have these kind of like crazy. Sometimes it's crazy thoughts. Sometimes it's like you're just. But it's just play. It's honestly play. It's like your brain is forming ideas and theories and like, oh, let me find this out. Oh, let me see.
Yeah.
Oh, does this sound crazy?
Yeah.
Like my homie Ryan, the white dude.
Yeah.
Dude.
Crazy, right?
Crazy, right? Yeah, dude. He's the one who introduced
Brilliant.
me to shrooms, to weed, and everything too. He was like my shaman, and like, yeah. And we would literally sit in his garage, in his fucking little not living room, his like room. It had his
Yeah.
computer and a couch. We would smoke weed, and we'd watch science videos like about. we'd
Dude,
watch.
science will get you out.
Bro,
of
we'd watch
fucking-
physics. We'd watch time videos. Like, oh, are we really in this many dimensions? How does like
That's
space
just
time
crazy.
actually work?
Right.
And it's like we would do shrooms too, and we'd sit and we just like have these like deep conversations about like life and about the world.
Yeah.
And it just opened me up to so many possibilities. And like we're having all these ideas, thoughts, and all at that same time, I'm thinking about me too, where I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Like,
Oh,
where
wow.
am I at, and why am I not happy? Why am I not where I want to be, and why don't I see myself there yet? And as I've progressed through my journey of doing shrooms throughout the years, like it's the bad thoughts have gone away, or like those like how do I like being self-conscious, being like feeling like I'm not worth what I should be worth. Like they've slowly disappeared because like I've tried to put some work in. There's been times in my life where I'm like, oh, let me work harder. Let me like try and do this when I'm sober and like actually put in some effort. Like read more, try more, like get smarter. Like don't be dumb, and like actually put in the effort. And then when I've done it again, I'm like, oh, I go back to that state and I'm like, hey, I don't have as many demons to like think about this time, And throughout the years, I get there. And I remember I was at Coachella, and I did it at Coachella. Dude, I would say if it's your first time, please do not do shrooms at Coachella your first time. It is a lot. It is a lot.
Yeah, I think I did.
It can be very overwhelming, and I was experienced at the time. The way it happened to me is I took them in the day. I was with you. You took them, and you said you didn't feel them.
Yeah. I took a lot of things that weekend.
It was, and we took them, and like we were at the Do Lab and had my whole experience. It was good, it was fine. And I remember doing them, and then after a few hours, it was gone and everything cool, And I met up Jeannie and Olivia. We were at Ice Cube,
I was definitely there.
and
Yeah, I
Olivia
remember
gives me a hit of the blunt, and I'm like, okay, hit it. I did not know that if you take shrooms and you let it pass and you smoke weed, it comes back and it hits you like a truck,
Really?
dude. Oh, I've tried it again and it works every time.
Wow,
Holy
is that
crap.
true?
I never tried. To
Oh.
be honest, I don't really smoke weed, so yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you do it, let your shroom trip fade out, maybe 4 hours, whatever. Smoke weed, dude. It comes back with a force,
Really?
with the
That's
force.
crazy.
And I remember being there at Ice Cube, and I'm like, I hit it, and I was like, whoa. And all of a sudden, I feel like physically, like tangibly pulled away from this other music that's coming from the other venue. And I was like, and I couldn't stop it. I was like, I'm sorry guys, like I gotta go. Like,
You're all dancing like
I was, and it's pulling me, and I'm like, oh, dude, sorry guys.
so where'd you go?
There was a honeycomb structure that way, and I was like, I felt like a bee being pulled to this structure, dude.
Whoa.
And I'm not even walking straight, like I'm literally being pulled by like the rhythm or by the music. And I go, and I didn't even know who it was because I didn't remember who it was. And I get there, and it's like. And it's fucking Zed, and I had I had never heard Zed before. Like I didn't listen to his music, anything like that. I got pulled all the way in there, and I go straight into the middle of the crowd, and I'm dancing in the middle, like with random people, just like spinning about, just dancing for like a solid like I don't even know how long, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. And it was like amazing. I just felt like free and like just in tune with the music and the present, and I had never even heard his music. And then I remember I ended up kind of like I got tired, ended up in the back, and I was just like laying on the grass, just like fist bumping. And then this random couple, they sit next to me on both sides, and they're like, "We like your vibe, man." And we're just all fist bumping like on the ground, sitting down. Wow. And I was like, "Whoa!" And I remember standing, and like it was one of the last songs. I don't know what song it was. But it was the way I can describe it, I just felt free. It was freedom. Like when it hit and everything was right, it was the most free I've ever felt in my life.
I really wish you brought shrooms today.
You know when I knew you did shrooms? When you're like, as an observer of the world. I'm like, this guy's done psychedelics. I was gonna ask about your other experiences with. I'm sure you've done other medicines or drugs. You know, can you talk a little about that and how it's affected you?
Yeah. Here's the thing. I know we joke about the whole observer factor, but I think that's another reason why it's I've been canceled. I've been looked at differently, but it's because I observe versus then just kind of just see it from like a perspective of just being there. If that makes sense, because I see everything from around her aspect versus, most people will just see things from what their environment is, their surroundings are, and I always choose to just see things from a wider perspective. And it gets me in trouble, I feel like, with people. Yeah. If that makes sense. But yeah, to answer your question, I've done other types of medicine. I've fucked with acid, LSD, ketamine. Dude, I feel like for me, acid or LSD is just like it's like the long-term version of shrooms, the unnatural long-term version of shrooms, and it just lasts way. And this is why I don't do it as often because it just lasts way longer. Like, bro, like shroom trip will last 3 hours. And there's an LSD trip. Like I think the longest I've ever had was like 12 hours.
Jesus Christ,
dude, bro. Like it's just like the body high when I was on LSD. It was just like okay. After 3 hours, it disappears, but then you're on it for the next 9 hours, and it's just like, what the fuck, dude? Is this shit gonna end?
Yeah,
it's fun, but it's like I can't subscribe to that all the fucking time. Now, I'm also a big fan of ketamine. I don't know. Are you guys familiar with it?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think
I've heard of.
have you guys been in a K-hole yet?
No.
Okay, so as we know, it's like we take it in like little bit, just a little. But I remember I was at Burning Man. Oh, that's a whole nother fucking story.
Oh, damn.
It was my first time at Burning Man last year.
Oh, yeah,
and
I saw that.
I didn't know what it was, but I got into a K-hole. I basically got into a K-hole. And it was like 7 a.m, and for some reason at Burning Man, it's just a thing to be up at 7 a.m. looking at this sunrise in the desert. And the feeling that I had was it was crazy because it was just I was hanging out with some people. I had just met that day. So I'm just like I go into a K-hole and I'm on the ground. I'm just like what is fucking going on? And they're asking me questions and I'm just like I'm just trying to figure out reality right now because everything is just so crazy. And it was just like the feeling I had was just okay. You've as you said you've been on ketamine. It's fun, but when you think 10 times that for maybe 2-3 hours.
Ooh.
and you can't move and it's hard to talk. And it's just like, what happens is your energy focuses on your surroundings and your environment. And I could feel everything. Like, and I remember, because I was there for 7 days, all the dust and everything, and like lack of sleep. And I could feel my throat kind of sore, and I could hear the music from like 10 miles away. And it's just like, and I'm like just kind of just sitting there. I'm just like, this is insane. It was, and it's weird because ketamine is a man-made drug, right? Horse tranquilizer.
Yeah.
And it's just so crazy how the experience, like, I don't know if I would, here's the thing. I don't know if I would ever want to go back to that again. It was dope.
The K-hole or?
The K-hole.
Oh,
It was
wow.
dope, but it wasn't like fun. It was very intense. And I think it's because I can feel everything. I can feel people's energies. I can feel like the world around me, and I can sense everything. But it was really intense because I couldn't just function. So maybe that's what it was. My senses were heightened, but my bodily functions were basically immobilized. So there's a trade-off.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I'm just like this, looking at the sunrise, and I could feel everything.
Would you consider that a bad trip?
No.
Okay.
Because here's the thing. I hear stories about people with bad trips, and I've said this before, I don't think bad trips exist. I just think there are hard truths.
Disagree.
Okay,
Disagree.
well, I can understand that.
Yeah.
And please, I'm going to ask you to
yeah.
digress on this. Like, I know there's times where people can go, well, in my experience, in my experience, like, it was always like a hard truth for me.
Yeah.
Like, it was always a lesson for me. Whenever I went through something like terrible when I was on Shrooms or whatever it may be. But I know in other cases it's different. So I'm like curious, like Mario, like what was your bad experience?
So I've seen a demon.
Okay, tell me. Have you ever talked about this on a podcast?
Have I talked about it?
No, I don't think so.
Okay,
Can't wait, let's go.
So this one is so when I saw the demon, it wasn't the bad trip. I was doing shrooms and I was at my friend's birthday, and I looked in the mirror and I saw my reflection and started turning red, and I was like, "Whoa, can't do that." Left, and then it came back, and I was like, looked at it, and like it was me, red, and it smiled back at me, and I was like, "Oh, not doing this, guys. Nope." So I didn't have a bad trip then. Just wanted to talk about that.
Mario,
real quick.
you are the demon.
But maybe that's it. Maybe like it's almost like esoteric. It's almost like that's you in demon form. But maybe another shroom talk here.
Yeah.
But it's almost like, you ever think about that? Like maybe demons are just us, but
in
it's
a
just,
different reality.
it's a I don't know if it's that. I think it's a reflection of what we could be.
Ooh.
You ever think about that? Like that's it's
I hadn't at that moment because it didn't feel like it was me, but at the same time, I felt like maybe I was running away from figuring out what it really was because it was too scary to look at. Because it was literally my face just smiling back at me and like red tinged.
It's almost like as if you didn't want to face your demons.
Yeah, I really didn't.
Maybe
I
that's it.
really didn't.
Maybe that's it.
But I'll talk about my bad trip though.
Yeah.
I did acid and I accidentally did a hero dose because we didn't know how much was on it. So I got fed a chip, right? And they had poured it on there. And it was supposed to be, well, I mean, a little chip and everything, you know?
What are you talking about?
It was supposed to be 1 gram, I think. To be honest, I don't remember. I just know that it ended up being kind of like double of what we were supposed to do. And it was 1 hour, 2 hours. Like, okay, it's good. It's cool. You're feeling the music. You're vibing. And it just started. And one of my friends started having a bad trip. And it kind of affected me to have a bad trip. Right? So I know what you mean about like, there's no bad trips. It's hard truths. At the end of it, look, I'll tell you, it's probably the most harrowing experience that I've had. I was in a car accident where I almost died, and this was more traumatic, where it was like you have so much sensation, like feeling and sensation that it's overwhelming. It's like a light. If you shine a flashlight into your eye, you're being overloaded with sensation, right?
Yeah.
And it was the same thing where you're getting everything, all this stimulus all at once, and it's so much. It's so hard to put into words. Besides saying that, like you're getting sensory overload from pretty much everything, and you're forced to like feel and understand, like experience, not just like feelings and stuff, but like everything, and you can hear other people having a bad trip too. So it's like there too. And it's 8 hours, you know. So I was going through it, feeling like overwhelmed, but I like legit. I just meditated. I sat down. And I breathed in, and I was like, for like an hour, just like focusing on my breath and just trying to like go through this and like see, like kind of like experience it and like not let it like conquer me. And it was a bad trip. It was more like a mental workout, like an extreme mental workout to like keep your like kind of sanity in a sense, because I felt like a part of me like started like you lose yourself, you know, your personality kind of drifts off into the ether, and you have to force it back into place. And when you put it back into place, it's not all completely you. You know, you're not. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's like you've learned something maybe, or like you've experienced something, and you're putting yourself back together, but your personality feels a little cracked. You know, and it was very, very intense. Like there was there's a moment where it's like we all had to throw up. You know, and I remember.
You went there.
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Do we?
Okay, so sorry to interrupt. Hold this thought.
Yeah.
Hold this thought. I feel because I've never gone to that phase where like I had to throw up.
Yeah.
Because when you purge, that's what I call it. When you purge, that means you maybe just took too much.
So I'll tell you two parts of it. Where one of them I purged, and we had a friend that didn't purge. Right. So I purged, and I went to the bathroom, and I remember I threw up. I'm looking at the sink, and it's all like, you know, my throw up and stuff. And you're not, so when you're on acid, you're looping. It's like you have these like habits and stuff, that micro habits, micro actions that you do that you don't consciously think about. But when you're on it, you get stuck in them. You know, it's like, let's say like I pick up my cup, do this or something like that, you know, and I'm doing that while we're talking, right? When you're on acid, you're constantly going back to these like actions, you know, and you go back to it, and it's not conscious. You're just doing it, and you have to consciously fight to get away from these actions because it loops you. You're just stuck in these like loops, right? And so I remember I'm like trying to clean this, and I go back and I'm doing something else, and I'm like, no. And like I'm in there like 10, 15 minutes. It's like having like ADHD too, where it's like you're trying to force yourself to do this, and I'm like trying to clean this. And at a certain point, I look at myself in the mirror, and I'm like Mario, like, who are you? Like, you know, are you gonna let this like drug like conquer you and like force you to do something like that you don't want to do? Like it's like, how much willpower do you really have? And I'm like, dude, you're a janitor. You have to clean this up. You're Latino.
It's your job. It's your duty.
I run a commercial cleaning company, so like,
amazing.
I really am, you know. So it's like, and part of it's like part of my identity. So I'm like attaching that to like my thoughts, and I'm like, are you gonna like just leave this here? I'm like, no, I'm not. You know, and I make light of it, but it's this like, dude, it was this struggle, like this constant fight of trying to like force myself to like perform this when you're so like, your brain is like somewhere else. Yeah. And I think about, in those moments, I'm like, what will get me through? And I think about like, I read a lot of books, and like there's these main characters and like who go through struggles and stuff. And like, I envision myself as these characters, and I'm like, okay, what would this character do? What would I do? And you're forcing like willpower into you and trying to like fight through the way the drug is making you feel. Yeah. And I did it. I did that. I threw up on myself too. I cleaned myself up, dressed myself. I'm like, okay, I've got to do all this myself. And then I went back, and I was just like sitting there for like the next like fucking 6 more hours that I had to go through the drug, just like breathing in. And my homegirl who didn't purge, it lasted her 30 hours.
Where was this at?
This was in the desert.
Oh,
like
you
in
guys
Palm
just hanging
Springs or
out.
something.
Palm
Yeah,
Springs.
we were just on a like vacation thing, you know. And it lasted, for her, it was like a whole thing.
There's still a physical aspect to it, meaning you purged, meaning you threw up. Like that you took excess.
So yeah, we took an excess, and it luckily, like for me, it lasted maybe to like the next, like the after effects, maybe to the next day, you know?
Yeah.
I still felt like fragile.
Yeah.
But eventually, I took a good experience from it, and I would do it again, you know, because I learned a lot about myself. It was like going through like mental hula hoops or like a mental workout, and like the experiences I've had from like weed, from shrooms, prepared me for this.
So it's almost like at the end of the day, it's like you chose to see it as a lesson. Like,
Yes, I chose to see it as a lesson.
In my stead, it's like, you know, like if I had a situation like that, it's like I would never go through that again. But I was taught something.
That's kind of like that thing that people always say, like, oh, there's no losses, there's just lessons. All the L is a lesson.
That's
you know
it.
what
I mean, it's
a
perspective.
similar mindset, right?
Yeah.
Like you'd be like, it's a bad trip, or did I gain something from it, you know? So I think that's kind of like what Justin was saying. I think I see where you guys are kind of elaborating on. It's the same thing, but just described differently.
Don't do drugs, kids.
Just don't do too much.
Yeah, don't do too much.
Don't do too much. Yeah.
It takes me back to like being a young 20-something-year-old and doing weed and like with your friends.
Yeah.
And like I don't know if you guys ever had stoner days.
Weed doesn't work well
Yeah.
with me at all.
I don't smoke weed anymore, like
Same.
regular.
Don't
But like
smoke weed
I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, those days, like it's carefree days, and you like when we used to do a bong, and like, dude, it's just such a different time.
I don't know how you guys did that shit.
I don't know how we did it either.
Weed, I would just feel like I'm dying every single time. It's like crazy.
It would make me think, and I love that about it, where it would just like put me in like a different spot, and just like also a different perspective. Not as much as shrooms, but just like it was just so great for me to like. I felt so blinded before I started doing. Maybe this sounds fucked up, but yeah, I felt blinded before I started doing drugs.
Maybe that's why they don't want us to do it, because it opens up our minds to the possibilities and the other perspectives.
Yeah, and you don't want that in a very like capitalistic society where you're forced to like think and act a certain way. Though I think it's changed a lot nowadays.
Well, I arguably like. I would say even more like, let's say like the opposite would be like communists. It's like a socialist. They definitely wouldn't want that.
Yeah.
Capitalism is just like, like it's like, I know going to that conversation, we don't have to dive in, but just like, it's capitalism, I think gives us the freedom to choose. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, definitely different mindset. I think we're talking about like homogenous like societies, like communism, stuff like that, where it's like, just be uniform, do this, do that.
Yeah,
and
definitely can't do it.
Usually when you have that mindset, it's easier to control, right? But yeah, it's a little different when you're on drugs.
There's no dancers in the communist countries.
So is this the drug episode? Excuse me, medicine episode?
Yeah. There's no dancing in communist society. It's called marching, bro.
That's actually true. I mean, you think about North Korea and like everything that they're putting out, it's like that's what it is, man.
It's true.
I think it's time to ask you about your dating life.
Now that we know your relationship with drugs, I mean,
Yeah.
medicine. How about your relationship with women?
He's like, same.
Women are drugs.
Medicine.
Medicine.
Here's the thing, like obviously I've said it. I was in a relationship earlier last year and I ended it and I almost went suicidal. And I've opened up to different, and I'm not talking about that, all right? Don't we think of it like that? No. What I'm trying to say,
There's actually gays that listen.
but here's the thing, it's like I've been single since then.
Oh, okay.
I haven't like dated. Like, I mean, I've had some situations.
That was
like
2021?
2022.
2022. Oh,
Early
okay.
2022.
This past year.
Here's the thing. I have a question. Have you guys, when I talk about the red pill, do you guys know about the red pill?
Are you talking about that male like masculinity thing?
Yeah.
I've heard of it.
Okay, so I started to get into it and try to understand it. And like, I remember I was talking to somebody, like a former friend of mine. And like, I remember he was telling me like, are you a red pillar? And I'm like, what's that? And it was just like basically, it's like, they're like people who listen to Joe Rogan and they're like misogynists and all this shit. And I was like, what? No, I just like the movie The Matrix.
Yeah.
And then he tried to tell me like, oh, you listen to Joe Rogan, then it's just like you're part of that. And I was like, Joe Rogan helped me out with a lot of things. He opened up my mind, especially with his guests, opened up my mind to a lot of things. And that's actually helped me with my progress with where I was going with my dancing and stuff. And then, I had to explain that to him. And that kind of just ended. I was like, I don't know if I want to subscribe to you anymore.
Yeah, I noticed you said former friend.
Yeah. So now with me going with this, I was like, what is this? And I started to get interested in it. Now, there's this book called The Rational Male by Rollo Tomassi, and basically, he explains what the red pill is. And basically, I'll just say this: the red pill, basically talks about hypergamy. Do you guys know what that is? Hypergamy is basically
dating upwards.
Yeah. So here's the thing: like most men will date downward, versus women will date upward. So when I say date upward, they're going to date men who have like status, money,
value,
high value. How about high value? You know what I'm saying? And like it just kind of like that book helped me understand things. But the one thing that stood out to me the most was the idea that women will their greatest fear, because right now I feel like in this age that we're taught in terms of like the female imperative or even feminism, is we're taught that women are the ones who are going to be choosing. But their greatest fear is that men are the ones who are supposed to be choosing the females. So it's like, so from that point on, it helped me understand like, oh, okay, so this is how it works. Because obviously we've all been like duped by women, right? We've been in situations where it's just like women are just have played games with us and all this shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's an option.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And even though like maybe in our cases, we're like maybe this girl's like maybe I can see something with this girl.
Yeah.
But no, the opposite end is, no, this guy's just an option. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. Like in this day and age, it's like it's like women have the power.
Yeah.
But the reality is that men have the power to choose. And in with adding on to that, men of higher value have that option to choose who are their partners, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, since then, it's weird because it's just like, I haven't dated since then. Because I've talked about this earlier, is I have shit I'm doing. I have shit I got to do, and that's more important than being in a relationship right now.
Yeah.
Until maybe someone comes along and be like, oh, okay, this could work. Something that I've come to understood is that, like I feel like the older me, and maybe most men, it's just like, oh, it's like my life will be complete once I have a relationship. But the thing about when you're in a relationship, people don't think about the lifestyle change you have to make to be in that relationship. Because when you're in a relationship with a woman, there's a big difference between women and girls. And now we have all these other genders, and it's like that's where it gets even crazier. But it's like if you're a heterosexual male and you're dating if you're looking for a female, whether it be a girl or a woman, I think there's a difference. It's like you have to think about. Most people think it's like they think about the end goal, but they don't think about what it takes to get there. In terms of a lifestyle change that you have to make with this girl. Like obviously, I feel like everybody in this room have been in relationships where it just didn't work out because maybe the lifestyle just didn't match, or like maybe just we weren't in the right place in the right mind with this person. But it's just like I feel like when I talk about lifestyle changes, I'm talking about like going into a successful relationship that's ongoing. You know what I'm saying? Like that one that just seems to work. And I'm not just talking about marriage. Like marriage, people think like, oh, you're married, like, oh, great. Like, no, that's just like a meeting point. To me, marriage is just a meeting point of like, okay, we're married now. Okay, what's next? There's nothing after that. So it's like, to me, a successful relationship is one that just keeps on going. And it just seems healthy. There's no like milestone to it. To a successful relationship. Now, when it comes to that, it's like adopting a lifestyle change. Like when you choose a partner, like that woman, I'm going to say woman because that's when a girl becomes a woman. That's when I think you can have a successful relationship. When it comes to that point, you really have to adopt a lifestyle where it like just makes sense. And I've never gone there yet, obviously, because I haven't been in a relationship. You know what I'm saying? Now, I haven't been in a relationship, or I'm not in a relationship currently, because all my relationships that I've had, I was the one that was ending it. I had to end it because I just knew this wasn't it. If that makes sense. And obviously, there's other cases where men were the ones who were being broken up with, and then it devastated them.
Yeah.
Now, the red pill talks about that. The reason why men get broken up with is because they're just not carrying their weight. It's like, and here's the thing. It's like you guys remember that book, The Game? Now the rational male is, to me, it's like the antithesis to the game. The game was just all about playing the game, right? But the rational male talks about like not how to play the game, but just how the game works. And it's less of like, because to me, like when I read The Game, I was like, bro, like I grew up with women. Like my mom raised me, my sister raised me, and I'm like, this is like, I feel like this book materializes women. I can't do this. But the rational male tells me talks about like female nature, like a human nature, male nature, and female nature, and like how it affects you depending on your action. Now, I personally think that like every male should read this book, especially if you're heterosexual, and also if you're gay as well.
Talking about The Game?
The rational male.
Oh, The Rational Male. Okay.
Yeah, like because it just gives you a perspective versus the game. Like this is how, if you want to be a player, this is it.
Yeah.
But like the rational male teaches you, like, oh, you want to be a player? Okay, do this. You want to be married and have a successful relationship? Do this.
Okay.
So and that's what I would recommend. I feel like I've extended my conversation on this a little further than...
No,
you're fine.
Because I feel like we're going to dive towards your own personal experiences.
Yeah. Because I feel like everybody in this room has had experience with women who just fucking play with us. And here's the thing. It's just like, don't let them fucking play you. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's pretty just what it is.
Yeah. Okay. So I kind of just want to backtrack a little bit because I want to speak about something just because we kind of spoke about it in a different term.
Right.
Like, how you said, like, there's no such thing as bad trip. You know what I mean? Just a hard truth. And I think very similarly, like the way we approach the conversation when it comes to like relationships, we always say like it doesn't work out or it didn't work out. And typically that just means like you're not together, And to me, I've had like a lot of healthy relationships or healthy throughout most of the duration. And I would like to say that instead of, because I don't like to say that it didn't work out. I usually say it did work out. We're just not together. Because I've gotten a lot from it. I've grown and, I've developed into a person that now, and this is where it sounds kind of bad, where I would say like, oh, that milestone I've like taken off from it. And hopefully the next person is more compatible for me. I used to say like a better person, but I don't think that's kind of like the wise phrase. It's like someone who's more compatible. It's not to say that person is better. It's just better for me, you know? Yeah. So aside from that, like, I actually haven't experienced too many women like playing me. I guess like if you want to say it like that. But also, I'm also the guy who's like been in a lot of like long-term relationships. Right. And the only one where I had someone where like they played me per se, I wasn't really in like a relationship with. It was something like I fell out really quick. And the reason why I say allowed as if like it was a choice of mine, but more so like the reason why I ignored all the red flags was because I was in a space after a serious relationship where I was like, I don't want something serious.
Right.
So I ignored the red flags because I'm like, what does it mean to me? You know what I mean? Like right now I'm not in a place where I want a serious relationship. So whatever happens, happens. And if something bad happens, I could just drop it and I'm not hurt. Right. But I do understand where you're talking about like getting played. Getting played is where you actually have your emotions like toyed with, played with, where you do leave like lesser of a person than you are, right? Some people, a shell of a man that they used to be, you know? And I have seen that from a lot of people. And it's weird because like when you said like don't allow yourself to get played, that is something that's very true because most of the guys I see that happens to is they allow themselves to get into that place where they can be played. Bingo. It's not really that like it's actually a choice at that point. Bingo. Because you usually when you see that person getting played, usually one of your homies, there's always so much that us as the circle could talk about it, but there's also a lot that they refuse to hear, and it happens frequently, right? Mm-hmm. So it's weird because when you're getting played, you're the only ones who don't see that you're in a game. Everyone else sees that. Yeah. Everyone else around you, but you choose to ignore the fact that this is what's happening to you. Yeah. Right? You think you know better. You think you're following your heart. You think this is true, and it's different. And it's a very, very hard pill to swallow. Right. It kind of goes back to like sometimes you let this person dictate the way you live your life, and you don't want to backtrack, and you don't want to say that you're wrong. You know what I mean? You don't want to say this person is the wrong person for me. And you see this happens a lot in relationships where it's overly extended, right? Relationships that should only be a year that ends up being 5, 10, marriage, 2 kids, a divorce later. You know what I mean? Like where they can't get out of it because they refuse to be wrong. And that's fucking detrimental, man. That's so bad for your health. And it's because you don't want to admit that you got played.
It's funny you talk about that, like, getting played and everything too, because your homies telling you and you not realizing it, even though everyone knows. It was like, I remember there was a girl, I know you know her name.
Who?
No, but it was like, it was the first time where I was like, oh, damn, like, I really like this girl. Like, I really feel it. Like, and it takes a lot for me to be like, damn, I want this, Yeah. And I really liked her and I was going for it. And I was like, trying to get at her and everything. And like, I got it and everything. Like, we're talking, and I think we're like, we're talking, we're dating. Clearly, like, I like her. She knows I like her. And I'm hearing from my friends, like, oh, she's kind of like, I've heard she's a little weird, she's a little shady, this and that. Like, she's talking like, she's interested. She talked to one of our friends. She was kind of like talking to him a lot. And
some context is kryptonite is Filipino women. So.
I understand you 100%.
And like in my, like, I know she wouldn't text me back for like 22 hours in a day. And, maybe taking out
22 hours.
Maybe taking out of context, that's
that?
like, yeah, I counted. I was like, yo, like, because I was tripping. I was like, yo, this girl, like, I'm putting this girl like on maybe on a pedestal, putting her on game. And I'm like, really trying here. Where I was like, I had her like in my bed, like first night and everything. And I'm like, you know what? We're not going to do anything because I actually like this girl. Like,
whoa.
Yeah. Because I'm like, I actually want something here. So I'm like, you know what?
Some more context. He's a whore.
Okay, let's not go there. I'm not, but
I'm sorry to hold this thought.
Yeah,
you should have done something that night.
So I didn't that first. I did on the second or third night, we did, you know? But usually, like, I'm a big believer where it's like, you fuck on the first night. It's not always for sure, but it's like, you're less likely to form a relationship. Not always true, but you're less likely to form a relationship.
You should do it anyways. Get out of the fucking way.
So
sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
I didn't want to because I was like, yo, like, I really, like, I like this girl. Like, I want something with her. And then, I got the feeling where I'm like, dude, I feel like I'm getting played. Like, I feel like, like I feel like I like this girl way too much, and like, maybe like the texting thing isn't a big indicator, but it is a little bit of like interest in like communication where I'm like, you're consistently taking 20 plus hours to like text me back. I'm like, oh, I live a busy life. Like, I know you got time. Like, man, like, so like it built up to this point where I was like, I gotta do it. Like, I gotta end it. Like, I know in my heart, I know in my gut, like, that I'm getting played. I know it, And so I did it. I broke it off and everything. And I felt sad. I was like super sad about it. Like I did, me and my best homegirl at the time, we did shrooms because I was like really sad. And like afterwards I was like, oh, I feel so much, it was cathartic. I felt so much better. And like then down the line, we found out that she was doing some shady stuff. And like,
What's that shady stuff, Martin?
This is hearsay, because I wasn't personally there, but she hit up one of our homies who had a girlfriend at the time, and she's like, like, let's like link up. And then he's like, no, dude, I have a girlfriend. And she like was like, okay, whatever, pussy. And then like, and then the next day she was in a relationship, like officially on a Facebook relationship with somebody else. And instantly, and when he told me that, instantly, like any kind of like feeling I had then left, I was like, oh, I'm vindicated. I'm good. I was right. I follow my gut.
You're right. And I think at the end of the day, it's always about like just following.
Yeah, you got to follow.
Because
sometimes like not that love will lead you astray or anything, but sometimes you will get blinded by this feelings of infatuation. And there's nothing wrong with that. If it's the right person, there's nothing wrong with that. But if your gut tells you something is off, I'm a big believer in following your gut. Follow. Your instincts know.
Should have just followed your dick and smashed it the first night, bro.
Okay, I did it I did second night, so it's still okay.
But that's probably when she knew. She was like, damn, he tried to sleep with me. I got him in my
yeah,
fucking hands,
it's like, because here's the thing, it's just like, once you go through that door, it's just like, all right. It's like, once you go through that door, you know each other. Like, okay, you kind of know each other in that way. You know what I'm saying? Like in that way.
Yeah.
Right. Because once you get past that, it's like, okay, now it's just like, okay, what's next?
So I've had the opposite too, where it's like, I'll take girls home and it's just like, just physical, and then it fizzles out.
Yeah.
So I didn't want that to happen, because I've experienced both. And it's not like it can't happen, I've had relationships from women that like, we've hooked up on the first night and it turned into like a month-long relationship. And that's okay. That's totally okay. But it's in the majority of the time when we build an actual friendship, when we like have an actual like experiences before that and like get to know each other, it turns into an actual relationship.
We talk about Filipino women. I am the complete opposite. All my ex-girlfriends are Vietnamese.
I was gonna say that. Mine too.
Really?
Yes. The most toxic women in my life have been Vietnamese and Filipino women. Are we bonding?
I think you guys are about to open Pandora's box. That's what you're about to do.
He's getting ready. Why do you think I'm? Chào cô, chào chú, chào ba.
Oh my god.
Con, yao lắm.
Well, you speak more Vietnamese than me. It's crazy because it's okay. Like I've definitely dated more Vietnamese girls than Filipino women.
Me too.
Like very few Filipino women.
It's the nuk mum. It's the fish sauce, dude. It's what makes them crazy. I'm just kidding.
Okay,
wait.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing. They were all Vietnamese American, but they weren't Vietnamese. I think there's a difference. Now, like, you both been to Vietnam.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm talking about Vietnamese American. I'm talking about Vietnamese American.
Like, is it just me, or it's just like Vietnamese women, or just Vietnamese people in general are way different than Vietnamese Americans?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But I think what it is that, like, this is something I noticed going to Vietnam last year in, like, November-ish or whatever. And I noticed that people in Vietnam are just so much more happier. But I think it's because they're the people that stayed behind versus the people that came here. Because most of here's the thing, like, obviously you're Vietnamese Americans.
Yeah.
And I feel like the trauma that you guys carried as the first generation Americans from your parents who had to remove themselves to travel to America by boat or by plane or whatever it is, most of the people by boat like had a harder time.
Yeah.
And I feel like, and here's the thing, most of my ex-girlfriends were people that They were offspring of parents that traveled by boat or refugees,
Immigrants.
basically.
All of mine too.
You too?
Yeah.
Really?
My ex-girlfriends, yes.
Oh, okay. I thought you were about like your people. I was like, whoa.
Oh, my dad, yeah.
Oh, your dad too?
Yeah, my dad.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
He came from South America, took a boat, crossed the border.
Yeah.
No, he did boat and border, so.
I did boat.
You did boat too?
Yeah, he's
I'm
Malaysian.
refugee.
But you're a refugee.
Yeah.
So you experienced it. How old were you when you...
Dude, I was only a couple months. Dude. I don't even remember that shit, dude. But I was in a refugee camp for
You're
like...
a fake refugee.
I mean...
Cancel
But
those.
Legitimate
they were
refugee.
carried through.
Yeah.
But it's just like the...
Like when people
Like a
say
little
like,
baby trauma?
when people call like Asian people fobs, I'm like, bro, you were. There's another phrase for it. It's like Boba, right? Brought over by airplane. I'm like,
Yeah.
you're not even really, a fucking fob. Like I came over by a fucking boat. But
Yeah.
anyways,
Brought over by
Obvious.
airplane.
obviously, yeah, totally different stories. And I kind of want, I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent.
Yeah.
But you're speaking about how like people from Vietnam are a lot happier, right? And I have this theory again, just my own personal opinion. I think when people don't come from a lot, they learn how to be happy with very little.
Right.
And another thing about what I've noticed is that the people who are usually the most oppressed have either compared themselves to a lot or have had a lot. And what it is like it goes back to like science basically, right? Dopamine, right? Like if you have a baseline and you get sad from like a very low baseline, it's not really that big of a difference, right? Like if your life is very fucking shit and something else happens, you're like, well, whatever, this is the fucking norm. But when you have it all and then you get turned down from a fucking girl and you always get your fucking way, you're like, fuck, dude, what the hell is going on? My whole world is like crashing down. Right. So, and the reason why I say that is because, one of the reasons why I say you should always go back to your homeland, especially if it's like a third world country, developing country, wherever it is.
Oh, yeah.
When I went back to Vietnam, I remember seeing this lady, and obviously with the war and everything, there was a lot of casualties and a lot of deformities that happened through Agent Orange. And I remember going to this banh mi shop, which is a Vietnamese sandwich, if you guys don't know. There was this lady, she would sling out like lottery tickets, right? And these lottery tickets, people usually don't win shit. They just sell it. It's kind of more like, I feel bad for you, let me buy it. But this lady, her whole lower half of her body, her legs it was all jello. She had basically no bones. And you could tell in Vietnam. Okay. And you could tell it was just like a deformity of like what happened before. And, I went to that banh mi shop like 3 or 4 days in a row because that shit was good. But she was always there. Every day she would sling those fucking like tickets. And it was like I would come in the morning, she was there. At night, she was there. So you just knew that she was there all day and all night. And she wasn't necessarily like happy, but she wasn't necessarily like sad. And I think, the difference was she has come to accept that this is her life.
Right.
This is the way she's going to live. You know what I mean? No more, no less. And, it's weird. And, maybe it sounds like kind of bad too, but like depression and suicidal tendencies, a lot of it is like a attribute of the privilege, right? And what I mean by that is like these people have no choice but to survive, and that's all they have ever known. Right. The people who've had a lot more, they're like, when they have it, it's great, but when they don't have it, it's the worst thing ever because they've never experienced anything like it.
That's some real shit. Yeah. That's a real perspective because I don't want to say it, but it's like they're ignorant of what our experience is here in America. It's like they have nothing to compare to.
Yeah, exactly. And which is why like you hear this all the time where it's like your parents have had it so hard. Like, what do you have to complain about?
Yeah.
Right. But that completely like undermines like the things that we're going through in today's world, which is completely different than theirs. And not to say one experience is worse or better. Again, once it goes back to that place in your brain, it's all the same.
Yeah.
You feel the same pain. So, for me, I think, you should go back to, for me, I learned a lot to be humble about, even more so things to be grateful about, because now I see what could have been, and I'm glad that we got out of there.
Yeah.
And while we do deal with like a new age set of problems, like I'm glad that at least I have the option to be better, to be greater.
And I'm curious, like, have you been to the homelands?
I've been to both, but I was so young. I mean, I was 13 when I went to Peru, and I was like 5 when I went to El Salvador. So I need to go back because you're right. When you said that, I was like, I should go back.
It's weird. Like I saw like myself and a lot of the people out there. You know, it was
The girls or the guys?
Or the lady boys.
the lady boys. Wait, no, wrong country.
I feel like they're not. I didn't see much in Vietnam.
No.
Thailand.
Yeah, it was just crazy. You see like all these people like hustling, but such like tough skin, but at the same time like joking about their like misfortunes all the freaking time. You know what I mean? It was pretty wild. And you know, most of these people are not even like related to me like that. But I was like, holy shit! Like we have a lot of similarities, even though, you know, I'm basically from a different country.
Yeah, when I went to Vietnam last year, and I went to the Philippines before that, I went back home to the homeland, and I noticed the same thing. It was, but even more so in Vietnam. But like in the Philippines, it
more
was
so.
Yeah, more so. But I think I'm gonna explain. In the Philippines, like I went to Manila. That's like it's basically like America. It's a city, and I could sense that it's like, oh, it's not that different. But when I went out to the islands, specifically Siargao, people were happier. They just seem happier with less. But I think it's also because they just, like, as you said, they have nothing to compare to. They're not exposed to the riches and all the options we have here in America.
Yeah.
And like when I went to Vietnam, even though Ta Dien, where I was staying at, that's like the expat central. People, like I saw dudes were just fucking like chilling on hammocks, on the streets. Like this is Saigon.
Yeah.
People are just chilling on hammocks, like in the midday, and I'm like, they're just fucking chilling. And it's just so. I think this is my thoughts on this. People are happier there because of they have a classic way of thinking. Men are this, women are this. There's not much going on over here. But here in America, you notice like every as we talked about, like depression is at an all-time high. People are committing suicides like crazy. But I think it's because, and I've said this before, it's because we just have so many options, and we just like we're comparing ourselves to so many different things, and it's just, and I think that's what's fucking us up.
Yeah.
I mean, this is why, like, I choose to go back to the foundations of like just classic ways of thinking. But maybe it's because, as you said, like me going back to the homeland, even though I'm not from there, my family's homeland, just made me realize that it's just like, wow, like we just have too much going on here. Maybe I just need to center myself with things that matter, whether it be just like the foundations of what I was talking about, and not talking about like the Bible, like maybe just the idea of the Bible, just the original stories that we were taught, because as humans, we haven't changed. But the world changed. So it's like me subscribing to these things just centers me. And I think that's just way more important. And especially seeing things from a world perspective is, I think, another reason why Americans specifically have so many issues is because they only see what's in front of them. They don't see things from the world, or they don't go back to the original stories of human beings.
When you say classic way of thinking, how does it relate to your relationships? Does that mean like get a mail order bride, or
Well, okay, let's go back even further.
Like arranged marriages.
When you went into this red pill like rabbit hole, it's after your previous relationship, right?
Oh, after.
So you haven't been in one prior. So can you describe like how you were prior?
I think the mindset prior to that was, and I think the reason why I went, also this also describes why I went like, I got depressed and I went suicidal, is because I felt like I wasn't enough for my relationship.
Oh.
Like, here's the thing. I don't want to talk bad about my ex-girlfriend. She's great. We're friends. We're cool.
Yeah.
We're cool now. But she has a lot of things going on in her life that I felt like I couldn't fulfill. And I think it was the same thing for what my partners, the businesses that I left, or the business that I left with my partners. I felt like I wasn't enough. And I think what it was just me feeling inadequate to fulfill these things. But the reality is, it's just like, you know what? It was better to just take yourselves out, or take myself out.
Yeah.
But I went suicidal because I think that was the conclusion, that like maybe I should just take myself out completely. But then, you know what? I chose to stay here.
Yeah.
But staying here made me realize that, you should just remove yourself from a situation where you feel like you're not. It's a switch. It's more of a matter of, am I serving this, or is this serving me? Now we talk about like how it's like a negative thing to, oh, you should be selfish. Motherfucker, you should be selfish because, you have the choice to kill yourself. That was the thought process I had in my head. So I felt like I wasn't serving my relationship with my ex-girlfriend. And afterwards, it made me realize that maybe I should be more selfish. I should be with somebody that serves me. And not saying like, I know that sounds negative, but it's also like, it serves me, but maybe we can, it's more
Serve each other.
Serve each other. That's exactly what I'm trying to look for. Reciprocal. It should be fucking reciprocal.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that in my last relationship. It was more, I felt like I was trying to serve her more. If that makes sense. And she's probably going to listen to this shit and be like, well, we talked this out. I think we have an understanding.
Yeah.
And our next guest from Cafe
Cafe Luke.
Now that's something I choose to avoid. It can be so complicated, but I feel like in the Eastern world, I call this the Western world, Westernized world,
Yeah.
You go to Asia and it just seems so much more simpler. And I feel like a lot of men are just like, they're like, you know what, fuck, like, and I think we can vibe with this. You go to Asia, you go to Vietnam, Philippines, whatever. It's like, oh man, it's just so easy here. Maybe I'll just stay out here. It's like, it's become such a challenge for us here in America. But here's one thing. The difference is we are also exposed to women of totally different like races. And I think that's a difference. Like, I think like here, I was talking to one of the guys at my gym because he grew out a beard. He's Asian too.
Oh, nice.
Or he's growing out facial hair.
I support that.
Yeah. Here's the thing. It's just like, and like, no offense to the men who can't grow facial hair. I don't know if you know what I'm saying, but it's just like, before I was able to grow this out. Actually, I was always able to grow this out, but I was like, before this.
Really? Always?
Yeah, I just kept shaving.
Oh, shit.
I just kept shaving this. But before this, it's like all I was attracting was ABGs. And then like for some reason,
The second kryptonite right here.
oh, that's your kryptonite?
No.
Afterwards, like when I grew this out, I was attracting all kinds of different women. I was like, oh, this is what you do. I don't know what it is, but
It's the beard. It's exactly, he's actually really spot on. Yeah.
Wait,
same thing for me.
go back.
It's the beard.
What do you mean it's a beard?
Okay, when I was like, 24 and younger, all I attracted was ABGs too. And then I grew up my beard.
Wait,
and
all you attracted or what you were attracted to?
what I was attracting.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
All
yeah,
you
yeah.
attracted
Yeah, what I was
ABGs?
attracting was
all I was
ABGs.
attracting was ABGs.
Yeah, I had the clean face, everything. I'm a little comb over everything, whatever.
that was me. That was me.
But I had Latinas too, but it's different because I wasn't attracted to them, But it's that whole story. But when I grew out the beard, it was like, a whole other like dimension of like people like opened up for me. And I had more attention from different kind of women when the beard. Yeah,
I don't know what
it's
it
a
is.
thing.
It's
It's the man filter. It's
Yes.
like it's makeup for men.
I think so.
That's interesting.
What did you just say?
It's makeup for men.
Wow. That's the complete opposite for me.
I fucking never heard that before.
Yeah, dude. I've seen it somewhere where it's like you take the beard off of a guy. He's like, oh, that's a 4. You put a beard on him, he's a 6 or 7.
When I was able to grow facial hair,
You've been in long terms. You've been in long terms.
This is like my fucking garlic. This is my abstinence look right here.
But I think it's all on top of that. It's also what's your game too. You know what I'm saying?
Peter's game is
Just play dumb.
Peter just they all fall into a long-term relationship.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's like.
I want to ask about that actually. So, how much does I won America's Best Dance Crew. I was Bruno Mars and stuff. Like, how much does that play into your game? Like,
He's like shaking his head shit.
I'll be real with you. It gets worse.
what?
Whoa.
It gets fucking worse. Because here's the thing. The fact that you have notoriety because you have a blue check, what most people don't realize is that people think like, oh, okay, you got like girls in your DMs and shit like that. But what it does, from my experience, it almost kind of backfires because you're someone of notoriety. When someone DMs you, a girl DMs you and it's just like, oh my God, this guy with a blue check, like DMing me back. It's like, that's all they fucking care about.
Oh.
And I can verify with my friends, the girls I still talk to, that's like, it's like, yo, like, can we just talk on like a different messaging app? And it's just like, they don't want to. Because they like being DM'd on Instagram by a guy with a blue check. Like that's my experience.
So you mean blue checks don't bring you substance?
It brings you something,
Yeah.
but it's just like it's almost like I have to work harder because it's like, oh, it's someone that's something.
Yeah.
It's like
Gotta live up to.
yeah, and it's like it's hard for me to be more real about it.
Does it bring you more though? Like,
It attracts more.
okay,
but
so,
in terms of
so
like
your pool is bigger, but you have to like, okay, this person here, find the substance.
exactly.
Yeah, it's a wire net, but more bad fish.
It's I want to say bad fish because there's some good fish in there, but it's just like I just have to put in more work.
More.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like here's the thing: after America's Best Dance Crew, it was way easier because social media wasn't as like
Yeah.
prominent back then. But now that like we're in like in a different phase where like women are getting DM'd like 30 DMs from random dudes. It's a different story.
The dudes from India be like, you are the most beautiful woman I've ever met.
Yeah. That's exactly what's happening to these girls, you know? So it's like, I can understand that. But at the same time, it's just like, I say this a lot. It's like, I don't want to subscribe to being like, you know, like to that. Does that make sense?
I feel that.
Yeah. It's like, I'm not, here's the thing. I'm in a place now where I'm like, I don't feel like playing that fucking game. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going to just talk to you.
I'm too old for that.
Yeah, I'm just not, I've been there. It's like, I don't feel like it. I don't want to do it anymore. Like, I'm just going to talk to you when it feels like it's real. If that makes sense? Because it's, and I think that's the thing. I meet girls like first, and I feel like because they, you know, I have this blue check. I have this many followers. And they feel like, oh, is he going to play this game with me? And I'm like, no. like later on down the line, it's like as time passes by, like, oh, no, this guy's actually just a real motherfucker. Or at least I hope they think that of me.
Yeah, but you're trying to arrive to that spot, you know.
Sorry to interrupt. I can't do it in the first like instant.
Is it easier when you meet them in person? They don't know who you are and stuff, you know. Like
sometimes I wish I should be doing this, but I wish I just like had a fake Instagram like of me, just like whatever. But then then eventually like they'll just, I know what's gonna happen. They're just eventually gonna realize, wait a minute, why does this guy only have like X amount of followers and like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and he's talking about all this shit and like it's not gonna work.
So you haven't done the dating apps?
Every experience that I had was very negative.
Oh, what?
Oh wow.
I've had fuck it, I'm just gonna talk about it. I've had an experience.
Let's get into it.
This guy's been playing footsie with me this whole time. Like, he's like telling me about his beard and like touching my knee the whole time.
So like the whole time I thought my foot was on the table, but like I was on your knee and I was like, why is this shit kind of soft and warm? I was like, what's going on? So my bad.
You're good.
Okay, so going back, we were talking about
dating apps, bad experiences.
Oh, my
and
bad
you're like, I'm just gonna talk about it.
Here's the thing. So my sister and my brother-in-law, they're one of those people that like had a successful like they're still in the relationship. They're like together.
Married now, right?
Married. Yeah, married. Jenny's married. Yeah. And they're the
Shout out to Jenny.
Shout out to Jenny. And I think that's someone you probably want to talk to because she owns a restaurant that's actually going to be reopening.
Oh,
that's
cool.
going to be reopening soon.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
That's,
what restaurant?
Probably
it's called Sampa. It's a Filipino fusion
Oh,
restaurant.
I know.
Oh.
Serious.
So you heard about it?
No, but I love Filipino food.
Oh, there you go. Bring your Filipino girls.
I
Yeah.
love Filipino women.
There you go, man. Hey, you'll find a lot of them there.
Maganda?
I'm gonna use that one.
Go ahead.
That's fucking amazing. I look at that and I was like, oh shit, maybe there's a chance. So I had during the pandemic, I had like, you know, I matched with a girl. We actually like fucking what do you call it? What did we do? Oh yeah, we actually like FaceTime and shit. Like we Zoomed and shit. And like I was like, okay, this looks like, you know, this seems like something that could work out. But then I think we were, you know, because at that time I was in the market and I was like seeing completely different things than what she was seeing. And I was like, okay, do you want to hang out? She's like, no. Like she was like, you have to be vaccinated. You have to do all this stuff. And I was like,
Oh.
And that was the time when it was like, you know, the rollout was just happening.
Yeah.
I don't even know if she got it. Like I think it was just like she just didn't want to hang out because like I wasn't vaccinated or like, you know, like and I didn't really know what it was, but she just didn't want to do it. And I was like, okay, but we had like we had a connection. And that kind of, after that, it's just like, I think she just like ghosted me. Like, it was like one of those things where she ghosted me because of like, we had just differing perspectives. Yeah, it's just like, okay, you know what? I'm out. I ain't doing this shit no more.
Yeah.
You know, like, one thing I'll say though is that shit will work in other countries.
Yeah.
Not so much in America.
Oh.
Yeah, that it worked for me in like when I was in the Philippines. Not so much in America. And I think after that, I was like, you know what? It's not so much that I give up. I was like, I don't want to fucking deal with this shit. Like, bro, like I think this is something that's common where it's like you're like scrolling and you're scrolling and you're just like, oh, okay, this person swiped right on me or this person matched me. Okay, cool. You know, like I just remember like during the pandemic because we had so much time, I was spending so many hours just scrolling. Okay, this girl might. You know what I'm saying? Like it just takes so much fucking time. You know what? It made me realize I got fucking shit to do. Mm-hmm. I would rather, and this goes back to me talking about like Red Pill. I would rather be working on shit that fucking matters, and then I could eventually just attract it.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that, and I feel the same way. That's why I realized I'm like, I can't be spending my time, when I was on it, I can't be spending my time swiping and stuff. So, but I'm like, I still want this to be in the background for me to like, if I still want to see someone, what's the best option? You download an auto swiper and it just does it for you.
Shut the hell up.
You use that
Really?
shit? I heard about these
You
things.
just download it. It's literally a Chrome extension. You go on, you download an auto swiper.
Wait,
and
does it swipe on everyone then?
Yeah.
Oh,
Swipes on everyone.
Oh,
Just
so
swipe on
that's not
everyone.
even selective.
No, it's not selective at all.
Oh, but that's
shit.
actually pretty dope because
Yeah,
that
when
actually.
you-
Sorry to interrupt.
No,
But
no.
that falls in the idea of like you're the one who's choosing versus
Yeah.
the women choosing you. So it actually works in your favor.
Yeah.
But you're also choosing every woman.
But it doesn't matter because it doesn't mean you have to talk to that
Yeah,
person.
exactly. Yeah,
it's
you're not-
more like, at least for men, it's more of a numbers game. Because when you've seen, if you've been on women's dating app, you'll see the difference where it's like they have a ton of like swipes or likes, whatever it is, and they get to choose who they want to like interact with. It depends. But with the guys, it's like a lot more varied. Unless like this is varies by experience. If you're like super good looking, like tall, whatever, totally different. Personable, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's more of a numbers game, and if you have the swiper, it just does it all for you, and then you're just like, okay, this person here, whatever, like whoever you find attractive.
I should have done that.
That's what I tell my friends to do. I have friends who be like at work and stuff. They don't really need to do a lot. They'll be
Yeah.
like that. He's like, I'm like, how do you find people on here? He's like, I just swipe for hours. I'm like, damn, for hours?
Jesus
I'm like, I
Christ.
can't be doing that, man. I got shit to do. Like, so I'm like, let's just fucking swipe on it, like auto swiper.
Because I think at the end of the day, it's just like women are gonna choose men that are doing shit. That's straight up what it is, So it's like you might as well just focus on the things that you're doing, and then you'll eventually attract a higher quality partner.
I think that does make sense. And I subscribe to some of that where it's like in my past when I've had breakups and everything, I'm like, what can I do to be better and heal? I'm like, work on myself. I got to work on myself, and I will attract people into my life. I mean, it's worked for me.
I've definitely been noted with a couple friends who, like, they don't do much, and they're like, "How come this super hot chick doesn't want me?" And it's not just like a dating thing for females. It's like, oh, how come people are not better friends to me, or how come more opportunities don't get presented to me?
Try.
And I'm always, and they're like, how come people just can't like me for me, and they stay like stagnant, right? And I'm always like, bro, if you want a better job, be better. You want a more attractive significant other, be better.
it.
You want better friends, be better. It really just goes back to you. But it's kind of hard because, it's romanticized that people should just accept you for who you are.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, you can still be who you are, but there's always a better version of you. And that might be the version that's worthy of all that. And it's just some people are not willing to put in the work to do that.
I think the church talks about this in like Music Soul Child. Remember that song, like unconditional. What was the name of that song? Don't Change. It talked about the idea of unconditional love. Like that shit is such a farce.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's like that. And then, like that shit really. That's the shit that'll ruin relationships and marriages because like, oh, okay, so you're gonna love me even when I'm just like not doing shit. Like I'm like I'm not. I'm just gonna be lazy. I'm gonna be a lazy fuck. Like that doesn't fucking work in a healthy relationship. You have to put in the fucking work. Like it's like to me, like love is not unconditional. It's conditional.
Oh,
Straight
I know.
up.
Yeah, I 100%. I'm that guy, man.
He really is.
Everything's fucking hella conditional for me, for sure, dude.
And women know this too. They know that quality women are going to know that if they're going to be in a relationship, they're going to choose a partner that understands the idea that everything's conditional.
I think people who have enough experiences in relationships realize that you have to put in effort.
That's exactly it.
Man, woman, whatever. If you want to be in a healthy relationship, you have to put in the effort, and like you can't stagnate. You have to be willing to work with your partner and like become better together and on your own too.
100%.
Oh, I agree with that. I agree with that. Yeah.
right.
Dude, there's nothing else I can say about that. Yeah, I agree 100%.
Hey guys, welcome back to Lightning Round, where we ask our guests some rapid fire questions. Jet, are you ready?
Let's go.
3, 2, 1. What's your favorite color?
Blue.
If you were, what's your rapper name?
JustJet.
If you were a DJ, what would your name be?
JustJet.
What's your dancer name?
JustJet.
Come on, bro.
Sorry, I had to get it out. Favorite food?
Oh, fuck. You fucked me up here. First thing that comes to my head, pho.
Oh,
But the soup has to be fire. There you go.
Favorite
like Vietnamese woman.
What's your favorite Filipino dish?
Adobo.
Favorite thing about a Vietnamese woman?
Oh.
Long black hair. But it doesn't have to be that. But just, I don't know what it is.
Someone who inspires you.
David Goggins.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I can't answer this fast because I can't think of a fear.
Okay.
Oh.
What makes you happy?
Living my life.
Last time you cried?
Oh man, this is a good one. Last year, December, I was on a shroom trip actually.
Oh, I love those.
It's because they're very, very specific.
If you had one wish,
That everything pans out the way I wish it to be.
okay. If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be?
Stop being lazy.
Oh, okay. Do you have a fetish?
What's a fetish? I don't know what a fetish
Do you have
is.
do you have a kink?
I guess something like out of the
do
norm
you,
that would turn
do you
you
like
on or something.
feet?
Oh, you're talking about like a turn on.
Yeah. You know,
Nice nipples? I don't fucking know. I feel like that's every guy's like king. I'm not like that crazy.
you know, some people like feet, some people like being choked out, like you know,
Nah.
S&M stuff. No, nothing. Okay.
Damn. I
your-
can't.
your-
Sorry, go ahead.
Your favorite artist?
I like Flume.
Okay.
Your favorite dance crew that you've been in?
I think Kinjas.
Nice.
Yeah.
If you could do one dance style, what would it be?
Gangsta walking.
All right. If you could go back in time and tell yourself, your younger self, one thing so that you could excel where you are now, what would that be?
Stop being a bitch.
Oh, okay. What's a piece of advice to a creator that always seems to have one creative outlet right now, but they want to divulge into different ones? What would you tell them?
Just try it.
If you could travel anywhere in the world, only one place in one city, where would that be?
I'll go back to Shargao.
Oh, wow. If there's one language that you could speak outside of the ones that you already speak, what would that be?
Tagalog.
Oh,
I
well,
don't fucking speak it. No, I can't.
I thought you were gonna say Vietnamese.
That's one of them.
In 3 years, where do you see yourself?
A more learned person.
If there's one thing that you could do going back in time that you've done before that you could relive one moment, what would that be?
All of it. Even the shitty times.
Wow.
Yeah, just to feel it.
All right, guys, that concludes our lightning round. I want to say thank you to our amazing, funny guest, JustJet. Let us know where we can find you.
Hey.
All my socials, JustJet, everywhere, Spotify, all that stuff, SoundCloud, all that stuff.
Ooh, and thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment below what you guys want to hear on the next podcast. And remember, live fast, eat ass.
Oh!